Let's see.
I think that would be it then, because we got a vacancy, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it.
That's
I think
it.
we're good.
Okay. Alrighty, good evening, everyone. The time is 6:39. I'm now calling the City of Inkster Planning Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chair Chisholm.
Present.
No, sorry, Chisholm.
Present.
Vice Chair Faison. Here. Commissioner Daniels. Present. Commissioner Kane. Present. Commissioner Willis.
Present.
Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Davis. And Mayor. Mayor did respond to the group and is feeling a little under the weather.
Alrighty, we have a quorum. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the agenda? Alrighty, if there are no corrections or anything needed to be made, the floor is open for the adoption of the agenda.
So moved. Support.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Faison and supported by Commissioner Williams. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. We're down to adoption of the minutes. Adoption of April 11, 2022 minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from April 11th, 2022? The floor is open for a motion to adopt the minutes.
Move to adopt the minutes. Support.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Daniels and supported by Commissioner Kane. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. We're down to first hearing of the public. This is for items not scheduled for a public hearing tonight. So any other items that are on here not under public hearing, which we have 3 items under public hearing. One is adult use marijuana retailer, medical marijuana provisioning center, and drive-through. One is, and that is at 29245 Michigan Avenue. One is at adult use, one is for adult use marijuana retailer at 30007 Michigan Avenue. And then the third item is a smoking lounge ordinance. If there's anything else that the public wishes to address with this body outside of the items I just named, because you will be able to speak to those during the public hearing, please approach the podium at this time and state your name for the record. Seeing none, moving right along. We're down to public hearing. The floor is open for a motion to open the public hearing.
Move to open the public hearing.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Daniels and supported by Commissioner Willis. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The public hearing is now open. Item A, case number 21-20, special land use. Adult use marijuana retailer, medical marijuana provisioning center, and drive-through restaurant at 29225-29245 Michigan Avenue. Mara, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so this is my first meeting with the city of Inkster regarding a applicant's project. So do I present a little bit of the project and then ask the applicant to speak, or how is that? How does the chair prefer that?
Yep, it's almost like a round robin. So you speak, we'll ask questions and stuff like that, and we'll have the applicant come up as well.
Okay. Well, so as you know, 29225-29245 Michigan Avenue seeks to open up an adult use marijuana retailer and medical marijuana provisioning center, along with a separate drive-through establishment. We have the applicant here with us today, representing Buds LLC. And hello, everyone in the front row. Thanks for having us. I just want to report that these applicants have been working really hard with city staff to get their site plan up to code. and have been responsive with emails and communication and have shown attentiveness to help the community of the city of Inkster. So with that being said, is there any other questions regarding this special land use request?
Commissioners, are there any questions?
So have we, I guess everybody know that I didn't get this until like today with regard to the confusion we had with the emails. But I just want to make sure with regard to what we were speaking about with the 1,000 feet between the other marijuana.
Yeah.
So are we 1,000 feet? 'Cause I know the flower bowl is right there. And when I looked at it, I know that these two are pretty close to that.
Thank you for asking that. So right now, what the applicants need in order to move forward is the special land use approval and then a site plan approval. And then the next step is to get their certificate of occupancy, which is the building department approval. So all of those three things are needed up until the buffer is triggered. So thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner. There's still a buffer, but these three things are needed in order for the buffer to be triggered. However, in the meantime, we understand that there's some constraints regarding the buffer and legality issues that might come across in the future for the city of Inkster. So staff has been authorized by the city, the mayor, to remove buffer requirements and address these issues all throughout ordinances that refer to marijuana in the city.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, run that again.
Jamie, do you want to speak to this in your work, in your efforts?
Good evening, commissioners. Good evening. Hopefully you remember who I am. So the way the ordinance is currently set up in the city of Inkster is there's a licensing process. The licensing process governs everything from who is initiating and who is applying for the application, all the way through the planning entitlement process, the building process, and then receiving the certificate of occupancy. These are all steps. The way the licensing process works in the city is that the clerk's office accepts the application, does the background check, establishes that the businesses are valid and have all of the requirements to begin the licensing process. And the remainder of the steps in the process have to be completed before the city clerk's office will issue the actual license for them to do business. So in the meantime, the city has continued to accept numerous applications from numerous different groups of people. And effectively, the way the process works is the first group to get through the process and obtain that certificate of occupancy for their business will obtain that final license. Once that operation certificate of occupancy and final license is issued by the clerk's office, that, what Mara was saying, will trigger the 1,000-foot isolation distance around that particular property that will preclude other uses, which would be either a medical dispensary, medical marijuana dispensary, an adult use recreational retailer, or a micro business from that location. So while the 1,000-foot buffer is in effect, or is supposed to be in effect, it doesn't take effect until they've got their final license and are operational. So effectively, it's I don't want to say a race against time, but it kind of is, because the first person who gets that license, that final license from the clerk's office, is going to be the one who triggers that 1,000-foot isolation distance. What Mara was referring to just now that created a whole lot of confusion all of a sudden is that there's discussion about revisions to the marijuana ordinance that may adjust those isolation distances between the different types of uses. None of that has been finalized yet. None of that has taken effect. Obviously, you all would see revisions to the marijuana ordinances before any of that happens. It would need to go to you, the city attorney, for approval, and then also ultimately council for adoption. So council will have to weigh in on those modifications to the ordinance as well. So nothing is changing with regard to the current ordinances in terms of isolation distances at this time. That's why we're proceeding with the review of these plans as the code currently is written. Does that help clarify?
A bit. From what I perceived that Commissioner Daniels was asking was about, is that location 1,000 feet past from where the flower bowl is?
Which is an active business at this moment.
Absolutely. Pardon me?
So that would, go ahead.
2,142 feet away from one another. Two locations.
And then I guess the other thing that caused the confusion was when Mara said that the mayor had authorized removal of the buffers to allow them to be processed and begin the process
Yeah,
unless it's triggered.
I think that was a misstatement,
Okay.
perhaps. He has authorized us to investigate modification to the rules and regulations in the marijuana ordinances to develop a draft that would help clarify some of those isolation distances and how those are measured, things like that.
Okay.
He has not removed anything. He can't do that unilaterally. He's just provided direction to the planning staff to work on revising those ordinances.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Commissioners, I'm sorry, Commissioner Daniels, you had the floor.
And so he said 2,000, so that's like almost a half a mile or something like that.
Yeah, it's not quite half a mile.
And he did like what, a fifth or something?
Yeah, so a mile is 5,263 feet.
Okay. Do we have any other applicants that came before him or that we've already do we have any other applicants that have already applied? Because I know we kind of talked about this before, where we didn't want to start anything with another applicant without giving the first applicant the opportunity to be able to do what they need to process.
Yeah.
Well, the way the way the ordinance is written and the way the clerk's office has been proceeding is that we are accepting all applications that are valid, with the exception of new applications for medical marijuana provisioning centers or adult use recreational retailers. There's the moratorium in place, which is precluding the acceptance of any new applications for those two specific uses. But if there's other applicants that come in with an application for a micro business or a grow operation or a processing facility or any of the other types of uses that are permitted in the ordinance, those applications are still currently being accepted. That's part of the answer to your question. The other answer is that, yes, there are numerous applications that are currently in process for that type of facility and that type of use. And they all have to go through this process of obtaining their special use approval and their site plan approval first from the planning commission so that they can proceed on to the next step, which would be construction or modification of an existing facility or construction of a brand new facility. So in one case, it's at 30007 Michigan, which you're going to hear tonight, is an application for a retailer that is modifying an existing building. The application at 29245 Michigan is two parcels that are being brought together. It's currently, I think, a tire repair
It is.
place, and they're tearing that facility down entirety and constructing an all-new building. So at this point, in order for the applicants to move forward, any applicant to move forward, we have to go through this step first to allow the process to continue and move on.
So have any of the other applicants that have already started, do we know where they are? Like, again, I think I'm just going back to what we were talking about before, is we have an applicant who's like a quarter of the way there, and we got somebody just
Starting on.
example, start today and end up beating them. Like, how do we, I think we kind of talked about letting them I don't know if you guys remember this or not. You
Yeah,
helped me out
yes,
with
we
this,
do.
but
No, we do.
we kind of let them, it'd be some kind of process so that it's fair, because they were there already. They got a quarter way or half a way through the process, and someone comes along later and they just jump the line.
Well, they
And-
can't,
and-
go ahead, finish.
I know I'm not using the right term, but they jump in front of them because they actually just beat them through, but I don't know how else to say that.
Yeah,
In order to
I-
just keep
no,
the
I
process
understand
fair.
exactly what you're saying, and that is part of the problem with the current process, and that's why we are revising the marijuana ordinance and the licensing process, is because right now the ordinance provides a path as to how you're supposed to do this, but there was never anything added or put into the ordinance that would set a priority or a queue, if you will, for who's in the line and who has priority first or anything like that. It's always been about whoever gets through the process first and whoever is issued that final certificate of occupancy and then is able to collect their final open operational license from the clerk's office. That's where they become a viable business and set that isolation distance for the other possible uses adjacent, down the street, adjacent to them. I mean, in some cases, there's applicants who are right next door to each other who are going through the same process at the same time. And how are we going to resolve that? That's one of the reasons why we're looking at revising the ordinances so that hopefully we can avoid any situations that are difficult in the future.
Commissioners. Commissioner Faison.
I have a lot of questions.
Ask.
Some of them are related to process, like we're talking about now.
Mhm.
And some of it is just a matter of, I guess I'll speak for myself. The state laws have changed a lot since I've been here, and we haven't necessarily, some of the things that might be discussed at a council level, may or may not make their way back here. And so there may be some questions that I may raise might just be a reflection of me not knowing where we are as a city in terms of, I thought, for example, that we had, that we stopped at a maximum of 3 dispensaries. So clearly that must not, my assumption must not be correct. So that's one of the things that I wanted to raise. And
Let's address them one by one.
okay,
Well, one of the things when the marijuana business license back last summer, I believe, was passed, the language that was intended on being used didn't, and it changed, and it really just opened the floodgates. So that cap was 3 medical. No, it's just a cap of 3 medical. The recreationals are the overabundantly ones that are in the language, if you will, that are supposed to be, I don't want to say restricted, but mandated by natural buffers. So
thank
that's,
you.
yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. So, I also wanted to just to be able to make a distinction because we use language in here, provisioning center, which I believe is associated with medical, but then we also have just adult use that is broadly used, but I don't know if we're using them interchangeably.
No.
Okay,
They're 2 separate things.
okay,
So if I could, a provisioning center is specifically medical. Adult use recreational retailer is the same version of a provisioning center, but it's only adult use recreational only. So when you're talking about a retailer or recreational retailer or adult use, those are all the same thing. Provisioning centers are always medical, but they're not the same. They're 2 completely different things and come under different laws, and the city of Inkster's ordinances also reflect that they are different entities and have different processes for moving forward. But in terms of the licensing and the buffers and all of that, the way that the city has been operating is they are treating the process for both of those types of uses in the same fashion.
So
I'm sorry.
if that's the case, why would we have two uses in the same?
because they would like to sell two different types of product.
Okay,
And so if you're trying to have two different types of product in the same facility, you need two licenses.
got it.
I want to piggyback on that question. So now you kind of broke down the provisionary and the adult recreational. So what would be the breakdown for the micro?
So the micro business is a kind of different animal altogether. They are allowed to, and you guys can correct me when I get off track here, but micro business is a self-contained total operation. So it's grow, processing, and sales. The laws have recently changed, and we had a seminar here at the city not too long ago that talked about some updates that were being made or had been made at the state level with regard to the quantity of the number of plants and whether or not outside product can be brought in and sold from a micro business or not. But right now, everything that's grown and processed in a micro business has to be sold in that micro business. They can't sell it to another business, and they can't bring in, I don't believe it's actual marijuana product from other businesses, but they can bring in marijuana infused products like gummies and tinctures and saps and those sorts of other things. And the old micro business limited production to 150 plants, and the new updated version of the micro business at the state level allows you up to 300 plants.
And this gentleman stood up, so I'm assuming he's going to add to the micro portion. Thank you.
The city's ordinance, I write on the, for the record, the city's ordinance is not, I don't think it does reflect the class A micro, which he was discussing, which can purchase products from processed products, vapes, parts, edibles from a third-party vendor, or grow 300 plants. I think the city's ordinance doesn't address that yet.
Correct. That's
But the
right.
state ordinance does.
Right. So that's in addition to some of these other things, the revisions to the marijuana ordinances, especially the micro business, will be brought up to the current state codes to match.
Yeah. So I think what Jamie's trying to say, and Mara's trying to say here is that the special land use site plan approvals, subject to the fact that these properties, the drawings meet the code, this body needs to approve them so that they can move forward. The license, the issuance of the license will trigger whether there's setback or not. So if there was a 1,000-foot setback and a property didn't meet that setback because of some offsetting property, then they wouldn't be able to receive the license.
Correct.
Right, but at this point, the special land uses we need to go through and the site plan approvals go through so that we can get to that point, right, to figure out, and I get what you're saying, we can't even measure that now. Yeah, we can, so that's what's wrong with the process,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
And currently the way the ordinance is written is it doesn't allow us to do that. That was, and trust me, that was one of my points of confusion when I first started here. I was very confused about that too until I took a deep dive into the ordinances and actually understood what it says in your currently adopted code.
Couple more
Commissioner
questions.
Faith, continue.
So going back to the applications pending, so there was a reference in one of the write-ups about the fact that there are applications pending. So just from a process standpoint, how do we know that the people who are pending are not being disenfranchised?
The process is completely driven by the applicant.
Okay,
So if they choose to take 6 months to turn in site plan applications, once they receive their letter from the clerk's office, or they turn in application materials and site plans the day after they receive their license or their letter of the authorization from the clerk's office to proceed, that's up to them. We process everything, or at the city, we process everything as quickly as we can, as soon as we get it, and move it through and on to the process so that we are not being a holdup or a barrier to moving an applicant forward through the process. So that's why you've got multiple public hearings tonight. That's why you've got multiple sets of site plans to look at, is because there were multiple applicants that submitted all of this information all at the same time.
And do the people who started the process, like, do we have to communicate to them that there is a chance that they will no longer be eligible?
To my understanding, that has always been communicated to the applicant right from the very beginning, it's starting with the clerk at the clerk's office.
Okay.
You said to your understanding,
Yes.
you don't know 100%.
I don't know 100% no, because I'm not in control of that first step. We certainly try and point that out when we're dealing with applicants, and I believe all of the applicants here tonight are aware of that situation. That's why they're both, that's why they're both here. Yeah, so.
I mean, again, I think that is whether, for example, the clerk has processed an application in order from the time she received it is kind of a legal question, right? And it's after the fact question. For example, if someone submitted, say, first application submitted for AU in February of last year, and then did not receive a response for a year, and then someone else submitted in the meantime, and that person should go through. At the end of the day, you know, there'll be objections to that person, that secondary person's application, but it'll also be a legal matter as to whether did the clerk do what she was supposed to do, or some other body. I can say that Jamie's office, since they've been in here, have been really great and moved stuff through very, very quickly. I understand maybe other concerns, but again, that's really a legal issue that's separate from special land use or site plan review that needs to be dealt with by those applicants, and some of them are my clients. That issue you guys just mentioned.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, that's one of the reasons why getting the revisions done to the medical or to the marijuana ordinances and getting them before you, before we get to that point, is sort of critical path for the planning department to make sure that that happens, so that hopefully we can avoid the situation that you're contemplating, and so is everybody else.
Just to interject real quickly, because of the conversations that are happening, and I know different things probably have been triggered. And what always happens is we get into this pickle, and then the attorney's office says, well, I wish you had told me ahead of time, I could have been at the meeting. What is their take on it, or have they given any input on behalf of the city?
I've had a brief discussion with counsel about this situation, and he is aware of the conundrum
Okay,
that is out there. And so he obviously is encouraging us to make the revisions to the marijuana ordinance as quickly as possible so that we can avoid any possible problems in the future.
okay. All right, Commissioner Faison, please continue.
That actually, all of my questions got answered.
All right, commissioners, are there any further questions from this body before we turn it over to the public to speak?
We will be able to speak and answer the applicant, correct?
Do you have any other questions for me at the moment? Okay, I'll go sit back.
All right, hearing none. This is a public hearing, so the public is allowed to come and speak to this particular matter at this time. And again, this is case number 2120, special land use for the property located at 29225-29245 Michigan Avenue. Again, please approach the podium and state your name for the record.
Mike Mondia for the subject premises on behalf of Buds. I'm the attorney for Buds. We would hope, I believe that the planning has recommended, city planning has recommended approval. We would hope that you would take into consideration and approve the special land use and site plan review request so that we can move forward with this application. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask.
Since he's not necessarily general public, he's here on behalf of the applicant. Do you all have any questions for him at this time? Nope. All righty, no
Thank you.
questions. Thank you. Anyone from the general public?
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Sandra Watley. I'm a resident of the city of Inkster.
I have been going over the master plan for the past week. And I've looked and looked and looked and try as I might, I can't find any place where it says inundate the city of Inkster with marijuana facilities. Grows, provisionaries, recreational, this, that, and the other, okay? Now, by the idea of a special land use, that means that you want to put something there that's not allowed by what we do now. So you're asking the city to give you permission to violate their ordinance. Is that correct or no? I'm saying that enough is enough. How, do you all even know how many we have now?
I think we have 3.
No, those are the ones that are open. I'm talking about all the ones
That's what I'm talking
that
about.
there is a,
Pending or,
there is room. Because as you recall, they wanted to limit it to 3. But our learned attorney said buffers were better. And once they did buffers, you could get 9 in a 6 square radius. You know, that's Inkster. Inkster is 6 square miles. And you can have 9 of these. I mean, what are we opening here? What are we doing? Are these, do you all have 9 in your community? No? Yes? I mean, how many are next door to your home, your school, your? I think that we have enough. And these ordinances that people are doing now, they should reflect the fact. I mean, it's in your hands. I mean, you recommend to council, and I understand that there's what, 7 or 8 issues that once we get it, that we can deny it as council people? Okay, yeah, just
Yes.
looking at me.
Yeah.
Now, all right, well, my thing is that a community that is full of this. There are people who are asking about businesses coming to Inkster. No businesses are gonna come to Inkster if they're surrounded by marijuana facilities. So since the rest of the community didn't show up to voice their opinions, the people I have been talking to are, they want this limited. They want this stopped because, I mean, I can't see where we're getting that much money from what we have right now. I understand it was raised recently, but it's still not worth turning your city into a giant toke room, you know? And I guess that's all I have to say at this point.
All righty, thank you. Is there anyone else from the general public? Hearing none. Commissioner Daniels, I think you said something about, would we be able to ask questions again to?
yes,
whoever?
yeah.
Go right ahead.
So I just wanted to make sure I heard whatever the applicant had to say, the consent applicant's not here to see.
Applicant,
Yes.
I'm right here. My name is Ronnie Saad. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm on my day.
So I guess I just really want to hear what he had to say to give them that opportunity to speak, because you did come out, you know.
So- To the point, you know, we are trying to open it. We are trying to bring something to the community. While some people may look at it as just being a marijuana establishment, we do want to bring a drive-through restaurant into there as well, and also bring employment to people in Inkster, provide them with opportunities to be a part of the industry, to be able to work there, to be able to really just help grow and bring other businesses, whether it's restaurants, retail stores, anything else around it. But to do that, you know, people need to get jobs and start working and putting money in their pocket, things like that. So our goal.
This is a currently vacant building.
Yes.
As well, which is being turned into, redeveloped into a new construction property with both marijuana facilities as well as a drive-through restaurant.
We're still talking about the tire.
Yes, yeah. I'll be taking that. That tire corner.
Chair.
Any further questions, Commissioner Daniels? Then we'll go to you, Commissioner Williams.
You can go ahead. Okay, so, okay, I'm planning, you may have to help me out with this. So this business is coming in, it's proposing as a special use. So what is it coming in as, a micro or what exactly? Because I've heard three different things there.
Retailer, adult use retail and provisioning center.
It's right in A.
Special land use.
So it's coming in as two, but then I also just heard a restaurant.
Yes, yup, there are two businesses side by side being proposed in the plans. There is adult use retail and in the same building with the provisioning center. And then a firewall with the drive-through restaurant.
What kind of restaurant?
Would be-
We were talking with Lashish, we were talking with a couple of juice companies. You know,
So we aren't sure.
yeah, we're.
We need approval before we can have, you know.
But I'm sure you have an idea, like, for instance, if I want
Yeah,
to
sure.
think about doing something, I will already have an idea of what
Yeah.
I want to do.
Yeah. no.
So right now, we don't have an idea.
We have an idea, we're talking to potential franchises to move in. I was talking to a company, Big Salad today. I talked to Las Pascualas that would be interested in it. You know, it's a nice corner, it's a prime corner, it's sitting there empty with 11 different owners over 20 years, and nothing's been done with it. And I came across the property, I'm Ronnie's father. I came across the property one day, I took it under contract, I did some due diligence. I'm a little guy, a little investor. I'm not no big shot that I'm coming to push anybody around or anything. I saw an opportunity. I found out in my due diligence that the property is zoned for medical and recreational marijuana. I made a big investment with my son. I took some hard money to put everything at risk, to take this opportunity to move forward and send it through the process. I believe in the city of Inkster. I've been doing work in Inkster, the real estate business, for over 30 years. I was a big part of the new home development over there on Cherry Hill that went up 20 years ago. I've sold 10 or 15 business opportunities over the years, plenty of houses. I believe Inkster has a lot of potential. From Michigan Avenue, from downtown to Ann Arbor, the weak spot we got right now is our Inkster. But our land is more valuable than anything. You got 5, 6 people next to me, recycling people, add up their taxes that they're paying every year. They're peanuts. Try and buy their property for $4 million, $5 million, $6 million. They'll tell you, go to hell, it's worth 10 million. What are you getting taxes on it? $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000? Listen, Inkster lost a part of its city years ago, okay, to Dearborn and Dearborn Heights. We're gonna lose it again if we don't hold on to what we have, if we don't develop what we have. We have prime property over here. We have a prime property. Let the process take its course. Let the business work for the people. Look, you wanna know something? You got how many renters here in this city? How many of them getting $800, $900, $1,000 checks to investors that paid $1,000, $3,000, $5,000 for a home that they don't spend no money on, and every month that 30, 40, 100 tenants, they're sending their money to some investor out of the city. That's not possible. I got a dream, I got a plan, I got a vision, I got a way that we can do and we can be better for the kids. This city has gone downhill since 1963, when the state Supreme Court gave away, for reasons that were only prejudicial, they gave away all of our best housing, all of our best residential to Dearborn Heights. And as God is my witness, we still have a right to fight back and take our city and get them. We should be suing them for $10 billion. 10 billion, look what they did to our schools. Look what they did to the kids. Look what they did to the neighborhood.
Alrighty, sir.
No,
I'm gonna
I'm
redirect.
not passionate, I'm sorry.
understand.
And it's okay, would you be open to, just having a restaurant without the, considering your passion and concern and everything? Would you be, open to just having a restaurant without the marijuana part?
This time, we spent quite a bit of money on these drawings and these special land use applications. To
Pardon
go
me?
back.
Yeah.
At this time, we spent quite a bit of money on these drawings and the special land use applications to develop the site.
All I want is what's fair and what would be entitled to and what could help the community.
So can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Where are you currently staying at?
Where am I staying?
Yeah, where's the city, what city do you
Where do
stay
you
in?
Oh, I live in Dearborn, right across the street on Cherry Hill.
You said that you've been investing in Inkster for 30 years, correct?
Yes.
I asked, what
No,
have
I said I've been working in Inkster and everything. I've sold gas stations. I've sold vacant lands that were developed into homes. I've worked with people like Ron Bradford. He's doing my landscaping.
Can I ask you a question? Another
Sure.
question, sir? So what have you done for Inkster? Besides, I understand that you're a
Right.
businessman and you have
Right.
made profit, but what have you given back to the city of Inkster?
I've made some good donations. Ask Barbara Cooper, Ms. Cooper, ask the Toys for Tots. I just gave 50 tickets for the homecoming for the kids, free tickets, I gave 20.
Homecoming to where?
Homecoming for the rides, free rides, $20 a ticket, the city of Inkster.
Oh, you talking about for the carnival that's coming?
Yeah, for the carnival. I contacted Mrs. Cooper. I told her I'm giving her 25 tickets. I had safe from the city. I'm giving them 25 tickets and everything. Yeah, I've made donations.
Prior to this year, have you made donations within the 30 years that you've been dealing with city of Inkster?
You know what? I'm gonna tell you. For 20 years, I lived well, okay? I'm lucky to be here. I survived. I woke up one day and, I had challenges. And only because I faced my challenges and I took care of everything and I cleaned up my act, am I here and did God bless me with this opportunity. And not to put money in my pocket. I'm not about money. I'm a simple guy. I got a legacy I got a legacy, I got a dream that I have that involves what I'm gonna put all my effort into working with the city of Inkster, the kids and the elderly people. It ain't about money with me. Look at everybody, they're all big investors out there. I'm a little guy. I borrowed all of my money at 20% interest. I'm paying $6,000 a month interest. Okay, I'm blessed. I've been able to do it myself with my son and my kids. Okay, I'm blessed to have this opportunity. I'm not a hog. I'm not looking to slaughter everybody. I'm just looking for a fair shake, a fair opportunity. And look, I got 6 people lined up. 6 people lined up to give them all an interest. Len Casper, Ron Buford, all that piece of the action. I'm buying them all in. If they all got 1 or 2% in and they bought in, and that 1-2% put $25,000, $50,000 a year in their pocket, man, I did good for 6 or 8 people. And I got to deal with them and all of everything. Whatever we get, we got to give our kids back. We got to grow the city. You better believe, you bring me into this project, into this city, I'll change. I'll change the way things are going here. I'm a believer. I'm a guy who come from nothing. I'm a guy who grew up by the root factory. That's stubborn, they got laughed at. I had nothing. I shined shoes for quarters. African Americans taught me how to play baseball at the root factory and everything. They taught me how to keep score. Muhammad Ali, my God.
I'm not trying to cut you short, and I get the passion and everything. I think we do want to continue with questions about the development.
Okay.
All right. Commissioners, do you have anything further?
Thank you so much. And as our chair stated, we do appreciate your passion. Appreciate you all coming out here. But as for me, and I just have a couple of things it's just not settling with me right now. I would just love to have some more time to think about this. I don't know about you guys, maybe table it. let us look at some more, let the attorney review this some more. I don't know, I'm just not feeling 100% about going forward tonight. At least I need to look at this just a little bit more for me. I would love to table it.
Yep.
That's just my
Correct this.
personal opinion.
This committee typically by law required to approve special land use site plan review applications that meet the code. All I wanted to say.
No, we appreciate that.
Are you aware that the Powerball is moving? I'm the owner of the Powerball.
Sir?
We'll stay on,
Should we ask his name?
you can approach it from the public.
Dave Hashem, owner of Midwest Recycling, part owner of Powerball, address 26051 Michigan Avenue. I don't think it is about the flower ball to talk about. We're talking about something else over here.
Thank you. We'll stay,
Respect to everybody.
we're gonna stay on the agenda items. Thank you.
It's nothing to do with
I guess what I can say from the public, and I've been dealing with this since 2016 with when Inkster got into the whole medical marijuana industry, if you will. And it used to be a time you could throw a pebble and hit everybody in this room, because that's how many people would come in, championed by Larry Motley in the Southwest Block Club. And they were voicing the concerns of the citizens then. Unfortunately, he transitioned and, things moved on. And so I've personally been going through dealing with this industry for a long time now. And we do hear the concerns from our citizens when these come up and they calling us and catching us out in public and letting us know. Some are saying, hey, I'm tired of this. Some are saying, hey, this is a great industry. It can generate tons of revenue for the city. So that's why at this particular moment, there's a little bit of uncertainty. I just wanted you to understand that where different views and opinions are coming from. And then even when the legality part of it, our attorneys aren't here, you're here, that's great, and that's fine. And we do get that we have to, if everything meets the codes and the ordinances, we follow the process. The only question I have, and this would actually be for the planning department, is I'm just lost on this one because it might be an oversight on my end. We're talking about medical marijuana provisioning center, and we talked about the differences, what provisioning is versus adult use. So where did medical come into play if we were already maxed out at 3 medical and we only have recreational going forward?
capped out on licenses, not on special land uses, right? So my client understands that one of the existing medically approved facilities may relocate to this location once it's built out, right? So the special land use, you have a license cap for medical marijuana, not a special land use cap.
Gotcha.
So you would theoretically special land use any eligible property for this, doesn't mean you'll get a license. And my client doesn't understand that.
Gotcha. So you're just being proactive in case you're able to persuade them to come that way. Understood. All right, thank you. Commissioners, anything further from you guys?
Yeah, through the chair, I just want to have, just on that, based on that last answer, I do have a question for you, please. And that question is, so if you don't get the license, does the restaurant still come up or?
The place would have to be built out with the C of O prior to the issuance of a license. So the
That's just
development
for
would
the
have to be,
medical marijuana side, right?
it's the medical marijuana and the recreational marijuana are just, they're two terms for two different sets of laws, which issue two different sets of licenses, which allow you to do sell two slightly different things. Really, it's a gimmick, right? They say medical and recreational, they make you pay for different licenses. They could call it marijuana, make it one license and call it a day. That hasn't happened yet. To be clear, the marijuana selling would occur in one portion of the building, the same portion that rec would occur in, medical would occur in. The entire building would have to be built out with the C of O prior to the issuance of the marijuana licenses.
I'm talking about the restaurant.
The whole building would have to be built out. It's the same building.
So if you don't get the license, then the restaurant is a no-go either.
The restaurant would have been built out at that point. The whole
It would
building would be
not
built.
have.
It would be built out. The restaurant, the whole building will be built, right? The whole development has to come up, but this is a redevelopment project. So it would require the demolition of the site and then the redevelopment of another building on that site. Right now, at least is the restaurant going to be operational? I don't know. Again, if we have special land use approval and site plan review approval for for our development, I'm sure, Mr. Sads would be in a better position to have some of the people we've been speaking with execute contracts on that. But again, that'll take into account the timeline of development. Someone might want to be operational in 6 months, a facility, which is likely impossible to redevelop this property in 6 months, right? So we would need the special land use and the site plan review approval initially to have a more definitive answer with our vendors who are looking to be at this restaurant location. But the whole building would be built. The entire building would be built, and theoretically, that site would be white box unless we had an executed agreement with the tenant to build it out the way they wanted. Otherwise, they would build it out the way they wanted and obtain the C of O for that portion of the building. Jamie.
So to provide just a little additional clarification for that, if they are granted a special land use approval and preliminary site plan approval, it's a recommendation that goes from planning commission to city council. City council has final action on the special land use and the preliminary site plan approval. But in the event that they are able to move through that process, and by the time they get the facility constructed and built and ready to go, if there's not a medical marijuana use provisioning center license that's available, they still could open a adult recreational use retailer operation only in that space, just not the medical portion of it. So they still could have a marijuana-based business on one side and the restaurant still operating on the other side, depending on what the situation is at that time.
That's what I wanted to know, because
Right.
you got exactly what I'm asking, right? Because the restaurant is not gonna be based on the license.
That's right.
You understand my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's ask.
Okay. Commissioners, any further questions? Okay,
I have a comment.
go ahead.
I guess my final comment is really just about process. I mean, given that this is such an emotional topic for our community, I just feel like more clarity on process and also the legal implications of going one way or another. I am concerned about how this sets us up proceeding and not proceeding.
May I say something?
Absolutely.
What I want to do is I want to go with you with the construction of the building. Okay, I'm gonna put a restaurant in, and if the city says yes to the medical or the recreational marijuana, I'm gonna put it in that corner. If they say no, I'm gonna put something else there. But what I can't do is do nothing. Time is of the essence. I promise you. Give me the special use that, hey, I could build what I want to build there. And then if I get approved for recreational marijuana, medical marijuana, that's what I'm putting there. If not, I'm gonna find something else. Along with the fast food, I got a great corner in a great city, and it's got a lot of frontage, and it'll bring a lot of business. Yeah, I will do something, ma'am, I will do something good over here. I got no choice. I put all my eggs in that basket. I got plans, okay? And if it's feasible that a dispensary could happen, well, good and everything. If it doesn't happen, I'll have the building up there. I already have the fast food restaurant going. I'll be able to pay the bills. And if I get approved, another thing that's possible too, the ordinance says, an existing dispensary in good standing, 100% can move to my location. So maybe I'll move one of the existing locations over there. But don't keep me from building it. Build it. Deny me. If that's the case, I'll find something else to do in the corner beside the restaurant. But don't, we're gonna waste 30, 60, 90 days. We're not gonna get no place. I'm gonna be joking. Give me the approval to build the building. And if I get the medical marijuana, the recreational marijuana, I'm gonna take advantage of it. If not, I'm gonna find something else to do there. 20 years of sitting where it's at, don't do none of this. Is there anything wrong with that? You asked, would I do something else? You want me to do something else besides sell it or anything? Let me build it now. You don't have to approve it. The city council can tell me, no, we don't approve. Well, you know what? I already built, I already got the funding on all in place to get it done. Yeah, I'm gonna have something up there, something good for us up there. Just give me the opportunity to build the building. Let the city council, let whoever tell me, no, you can't have marijuana. I'll go about my business. But I will have something that, hey, I run a restaurant out of there, I'll be able to pay the bills, and I can do something with it. Got a nice corner.
Well said, Ali.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything further, commissioners? I have one.
Will we be in order to, will we be in order to table this? Is it, can we table it?
Well,
If we had enough support, I mean,
Well-
will we be in order to do that?
so it's a couple votes in here. You know, normally we end up closing the public hearing for that, and then we
Okay.
have the actual vote for the special land use itself. Or if anyone decided, because remember, these are three different things in this one. Whatever you decide to do is, you know, on this body to do, we would be in order to do
Okay.
so. Just have to make the motion clear
Okay,
and make sure everybody's on the same page.
okay.
My question to planning is, how far away or close is this from the special needs school on Carlisle?
I don't have that. Do you have that information?
No?
I don't know.
Okay.
It would
I was
have to
just
be-
curious, because you know, that's owned and operated by Garden City Public Schools. Even though it's in Inkster, when the state gave our stuff away, they kept that school there and they owned and operated it. So that's why I was just curious.
What's the
So
exact name again of the,
I believe it's Burger Baylor,
Yes. Carlisle and, well,
just
that
just
side
west of
street.
Middlebelt.
Yes, yeah, no, what is that side street?
Northland?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's across the street. Oh, yeah, it does run next
Yeah,
to it. I'm
runs
sorry.
next door.
What is it called again?
That's like half a mile away.
What's it called?
Appalachia.
Yeah. So the initial applications, when they come in for the licensing, because like I said, that's where everything starts, is at the clerk's office with regard to the licensing application and the process, if you will, the whole process starts in the clerk's office. The planning department doesn't even get involved with those applications until they clear the initial hurdles from the clerk's office. The clerk's office is the one who does the verification that the applicant and the site that they are proposing does not interfere with schools, churches, and there's several others that the state mandates where that you can't be within a certain distance from. And so if the clerk has signed off and given approval to move forward with the application to the applicant, that means that they've done that investigation to check against all relevant locations.
Gotcha, because you guys brought that up, because both are right there. There's a church right on Middlebelt, just past the music shop, resale shop, and then the school is over there to the left. Okay. All right, I have nothing further, commissioners. And if you don't,
But it wasn't even part of the assessment. Those buildings weren't even,
really?
no, I mean, that wasn't, those weren't specifically listed in our letters. Or were they just out of, not included because they were outside of that distance?
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
But you can ask still Clarence. But he did say kind of sort of that's in the clerk's office portion, so.
Clerk wouldn't have sent it over to planning if it didn't meet the buffers. I think is what you-
I mean, according to Google, it's about 1 mile away.
Okay.
I'd ask those questions, because when we get challenged, I can't be standing there.
We're standing right next to you.
All righty, well, thank you.
Now, the problem is if you're standing there, you can't pay the legal bills though. So you can just be there in support, but it doesn't really help us. But that's really great.
All right, and again, this is for the property at 29225-29245 Michigan Avenue, so Michigan and Middlebelt. All righty, commissioners, what is your pleasure?
So it's now the time to table it. If that's
Motion
done, do I
to
need to-
close.
Let Mr. Gorfeld speak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick point of
Oh,
order.
that's right, I'm sorry, thank you.
it might be worth listening to the planner's report on the site plan
Okay,
review
okay.
and see if you have any questions regarding that as well before you make any decisions.
Yes, sir.
All righty, well, yeah, that's right. 'Cause we, as a matter of fact, I'm sorry, we're just closing the public hearing. That's down under new business. My apologies. Sorry for the confusion. The floor is open for a motion to close the public hearing for case, item A, case number 21-20.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Kane and supported by Commissioner Williams. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. The public hearing is now closed. The floor is open for a motion to open the public hearing for case number 21-19, special land use, adult use marijuana retailer at 30007 Michigan Avenue. Floor is open for a motion for the public hearing going twice.
Oh,
Open the
move to-
public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. We weren't paying attention.
Okay.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
All right,
It's
I was-
formatted differently, I think, than what
Yeah.
we normally do.
Yeah.
It is. We changed. I'm sorry, motion on the floor. It's been properly moved by Commissioner Kane and seconded by Commissioner Daniels. All in favor? All opposed? Public hearing is now open. Again, this is case number 21-19, special land use, adult use marijuana retailer at 30,007 Michigan Avenue. Mara, you have the floor.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Again, we have the applicants here with us today who again have been collaborative in the process of improving their site plans so that it complies to the zoning ordinance for the city of Inkster. Danny and Ahmed are here today. We've also worked with their architect, Alex, in the process. They have, so our McKenna team has reviewed the special land use request, as we did for the other report, on the special land use requirements in the zoning ordinance. As you can see, the review of all of these standards have taken place within the report itself. And that's all of the information that I have. If you want follow-up questions, feel free to do so.
Commissioners, floor is yours. Anybody have any questions for planning at this moment? Or about the subject matter in full, we can have the applicant address.
I think
Okay.
everything else gonna be about the same with regard to the one before, so.
Okay. You want to ask your questions now, Kim, or you want the applicant to approach?
It's, once again, it's more process. I don't know that micro grow is something that I have, I think this is my first time having a micro grow. So,
Yeah,
so if you could provide some, you know.
I'm back again.
go right ahead.
Carry on.
So, so during the application process, the applicant approached the city. Let me back up. The original application from the applicant was for a micro business.
Mhm.
There was a brief period of time between the end of the moratorium in December and the reinstatement of the moratorium in January, where new applications were allowed to be accepted because of the gap and there was no moratorium in place. At that time, the applicant came in and petitioned the clerk and the planning department to change their application from a micro business to an adult retailer or recreational retailer. So that's what the proposal is for before you now. There's no consideration for a grow. There's no consideration for a micro business. It's only for an adult use recreational retailer application.
Is that what the reference to, because I think there was a reference to like a resubmission and it might be like the multiple reviews had taken place. Is that what that was referencing?
In the report,
Yeah, so this applicant has, like I said, has been corresponding with staff to improve their site plan and application process. This is the fourth review and staff finds that it's ready for the review of the commission right now as it stands. But there are some requirements that or recommendations that we recommend for you to issue as conditions for your approval. And one is clarifying the language on the site plans, eliminating all of the past remnants of micro grow business and only saying that is for adult use retail.
Thank you.
So that was, the planning department has been working with these groups of applicants on multiple occasions to sort of refine and re-review. Because what we don't like doing is we don't like bringing applications and petitions before the planning commission that have 57 different conditions associated with it. But one of the things that the applicant's professional didn't catch during a couple of the sets of revisions was eliminating the phrase micro business off of the drawings. So that's one of the conditions on the report, is to make sure that all those references are clearly taken off of the drawings so that there's no confusion like you're currently having.
Thank you. That answers one of my questions.
All righty.
Are there setbacks between all use retail facilities in that area right now?
There are current, no,
In that area between Middle Belt and Henry Ruff on Michigan Avenue, there are no setbacks between adult use retail.
no. So, so there's another point of clarification. So the setbacks or the buffer distances that when they are implemented to isolate one use from another, there is 1,000-foot separation distance required between any micro business and any medical provisioning center or any adult use retailer. There's also a separation distance between medical provisioning centers and adult retailers also. Right now, the way the ordinance is written is that micro businesses can be located right next door to each other without the process interfering or potentially having an adverse effect on it, because there is no separation distance required between micro businesses in the ordinance as it currently stands. So when several of these applications came in over the past year and a half or so, there were several micro businesses that came in during that application time, and they were all for micro businesses. So there really wasn't any concern at that point when the applications were initially received that the micro businesses could happily cohabitate next to each other. It was when we started talking about applications coming in for the other types of uses and the micro businesses that it started to get complicated. And it's added to the confusion a little bit because they did change their application from a micro business to the adult retailer. But right now, the planning departments and the planning commission's sole objective is, for a lack of a better term, is to follow the process, to allow the applicants to move through the process as it currently stands. And as Eric pointed out, that if they meet the requirements for site plan approval, and if they meet the requirements for a special land use approval, then the planning commission is obligated to recommend approval of that to council, and then it's up to council to ultimately take action as to whether or not they would approve those uses in those locations.
Gotcha. And some of the things that Jamie alluded to, or Mr. Gormflow alluded to, and when the gentleman from the other entity was speaking to about setbacks in that district, I don't know if you all recall, but I think we were on Zoom then, and we talked about a entertainment district overlay.
Yes,
And putting things like the micros right there.
yes.
And we talked about co-locating them in the marijuana business license, so there could be multiple in that one location and not inundate the city with those, plus recreational, plus medical, plus cultivation.
Right,
Because as our ordinance stands right now, we don't have a lot.
yes.
Or there's an opportunity for there to be a lot.
Mhm.
So that's why that's like that. But then also keep in mind too, one of those questions that comes up about the race to the finish is if you have persons from I'm trying to recall the social equity, people from the community who had invested in a micro trying to open up. If something like a adult use were to open up before them, it would pretty much knock them out the box.
Oh.
And so that was one of the concerns that has been raised. As a matter of fact, that was the reason the moratorium was imposed, because per the clerk's office, it was asked at a council meeting, how many people were in the hopper for a micro. I think it was maybe 2 applications, but we hadn't heard anything yet, don't know where they stand. And that was one of those things about, I guess, one of you all asked, is that communicated with the applicant?
Right.
And you said to your knowledge from the clerk's
Yes.
office, it's basically it's supposed to be. And we would hope so, because either way, we know what is inevitable is going to occur.
So to add upon that, just to provide additional clarification, if you're not familiar with the master plan, the master plan does identify specifically an entertainment district. It's shown on a map in the master plan, and it's identified as the north and south sides of Michigan Avenue between Middlebelt and Henry Ruff. And all of those properties were zoned B3 as long as they fronted on Michigan Avenue, with a few exceptions. And the only place in the city that micro businesses are allowed is within that entertainment district. Okay, so they can't be other places in the city. They can only be located within that entertainment district between Middlebelt and Henry Ruff.
Unless that relates to micro.
It's micro businesses only. So the other types of businesses can be located in other parts of the city as long as they're in appropriate
Need that
district.
buffer.
Correct.
Okay.
And I realize when we rewrite the ordinance, I'm gonna need lots of props and lots of maps and things like that too.
But that definitely makes a lot of sense though, and I do remember that since you said that.
Yeah.
Because I think that was one of the other concerns that we were talking about too. That at least we know that it's only gonna be in a certain spot right there that micro can even go nowhere beyond Henry Ruff, Middlebelt, this side of Michigan, that side of Michigan. It would just be in this little
Right.
square mile radius.
Yep.
Was there, I'm sorry, am I cutting you off?
No.
Was there some kind of, I know at the state level, there are references to, they're trying to make this industry more equitable and accessible for local people. Is there a connection between that and the micro grow or the micro businesses?
Well, yes. I can't get into the elaborate specifics of the answer to that question, but what I can say is one of the things that we're investigating as a potential revision to the ordinance is the Inkster City ordinances currently require a higher level of financial participation or equity on a local level to be allowed to do a micro business. I think it's 51%. The state requirement is only 15%. So one of the things that the city, and I don't want to say, I'm using that as a very broad stroke, but the experience kind of so far has been, or the feedback has been that a 51% social equity investment for a micro business is very difficult to achieve, especially for people in the city of Inkster. And so we're considering recommending a reduction of that social equity percentage to what we haven't made a determination, but it's probably going to be more in line with the state's requirements as opposed to that 51%.
The reason I asked that question is within this context is whether the applications that are in the pipeline are like whether any amount of the process that you just described is impacting is that we should be considering as a process writ large. And that's not related directly to these applicants, but to me, it all counts. So.
Well, ultimately, the clerk's office is the one who kind of holds the last piece of this. And so as long as applicants are able to demonstrate to the clerk through the licensing review process, that they've got the social equity, they've got their documents in place, they've got their financing, the people pass their background checks. They do background checks on the applicants' wives or spouses. So it's a thorough. But as long as they have that, then the clerk signs off on that and then allows the process to move forward, which is then coming to the planning department for us to help move the process forward with site plan review and special land use review. Then we bring it to you, and then we'll do this all over again when we go to council.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Anything further, Commissioner Faison? Yes.
I believe it was this review letter that makes a reference to something that's being changed. And I apologize, I can't flip to it at the moment just because our packs are so big, but I just wanted to clarify whether an amendment that is being proposed directly relates to this application. There was a reference to a section 155.150.
So 155.150.
Yeah,
That is, I think, separation standards. It was crossed out, right? It was struck through. Wait, I'm sorry. No, it's not true. Those are my eyes. My bad.
I just wanted to make sure that we addressed that already. Like, I don't know if that's
Is this it right here?
basically what,
On page,
3. Page 3,
page 3.
the site plan review.
thank you. I just wanted to make sure that whether that was something that we already addressed. You had said it doesn't appear to be a locational conflict. Pending applications. Okay, so I think we covered this topic broadly. Does this sound like you know what I'm referencing?
Yeah,
Okay,
so, yeah, thanks, Chair, if I may. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks for bringing that up, Vice Chair. This is something that we wanted to have at the Planning Commission's attention for this evening, that there are other applications that potentially could be within this buffer. So we wanted to make sure that that was in the minutes of this conversation. But as we move forward under the understanding after presentation from Mr. Gorenflow, the decision here today is to approve the special land use or consider approval, consider denial, consider conditional approval of special land use in the site plan. And those are the only steps that we are requesting Planning Commission today to move forward with the outlined process. Granted, we did discuss today that the outlined process needs to change, but that's how the process is today, and that's what we must follow.
thank you so much.
Commissioners, anything further before we address the public? All right, hearing none, this is a public hearing, and this is in reference to item or case number 21-19, special land use, adult use marijuana retailer at 30,007 Michigan Avenue. If anybody from the general public wishes to speak to these matters, please approach the podium, state your name for the record.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Is this the applicant or? Oh,
I'm sorry, I turned it over to the general public when I should have turned it over to the applicant.
okay.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hi, how are you? I'm Danny Hayner. I'm the applicant. Just be my partner, AJ. What we're doing, we were gonna do a micro grow, but I just think it's much more easier for us to do a dispensary. The reason why the building's already there, it's been vacant for over 4 years. It's in the middle of nowhere. You got U-Haul in front of you. There's a vacant land next to me, and there's no residential properties anywhere around, so you have nothing to worry about that. It's completely vacant. No residential at all, and that's about it.
So this blue,
Right ahead, Commissioner
sorry.
Davis. No, go ahead.
so this blue, big blue.
Yeah,
house,
that's it.
You said there's no, so,
There's no residential at all.
right, so,
nothing
but you
around.
are specific, what's gonna happen with this building, this big new building?
So I'm sitting on, I think, 2.6 acres total. It's, we're gonna convert it, the whole front, the back, we're stoning it. It's gonna be a beautiful building. We're adding many parking spots, lighting the area up, and we're gonna make it an adult retail. Like I said, we're on so much land that
It looks like it's about 2.75 acres.
Anything further, Commissioner Davis, for the applicant?
No, sir, thank you.
All right, commissioners. Anything further? Oh, I'm sorry, not anything further. Do you have any questions for the applicant at this time? All righty, here none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And backtracking on my misspeaking, this is a public hearing, so anyone from the general public who wishes to speak to this matter, please approach the podium and state your name for the record.
Mike Dia, on behalf of Mr. Farhad next door, thanks for micro business. This is the situation that I was mentioning before, and you guys also, I think, brought to light earlier that could have happened and actually did happen. My client, Acres Next Door, has submitted an application. It was the first adult use application submitted after the new ordinance was adopted. I want to say February 2nd, January 2nd of 2021. Nevertheless, that application did not move through the process. Allegedly, it was lost and then found, lost and found again. And that application has also been amended in the brief window between the lapse of the moratorium and the initiation of the new moratorium from a microbusiness application to an adult use retail facility application. And it would be within 1,000 feet of this other location. Now, I understand that the ordinance may change to not have buffers between adult use retail facilities in this overlay district. Currently, that's not the case. And while I do believe, this body is still required to approve special land use site plan reviews that meet the code. In this situation, I would like to place on the record the fact that this the licensing of this facility would buffer out my client, which was submitted prior to this facility. Again, the licensing has to do with the clerk.
We submitted the application way before any.
For the first, I don't know.
We have it on paper.
It's fine.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're talking
We need
about.
to, we need to be able to investigate all of this.
We do. Well, that's why
Okay, so
the license would offer us out, not the special land. Be clear. But it's the situation we're talking about.
Thank you.
I have to put it on the record.
Thank you. And anyone else from the general public?
that's right.
Well, greetings, general public.
I would like to reiterate everything I said the last time. In addition, a micro business requires participation from a local resident, which is one of the reasons why a moratorium was instituted to begin with. Now, the moratorium or the window they're talking about is 1 day. 1 day between the old moratorium and the new one.
So our legal is about 11 days. Lapse of the moratorium.
Oh, she has the floor.
I don't believe you're correct. It was 1 day, the Monday. And in that period of time, the people decided to go for the big money place, which is the dispensary, as opposed to the micro where they would have to share that. So that's not, to me, thinking about this community. That's not, to me, an interest in the residents that live here, or else you could have a license right now. There's no moratorium on micro, if that's what you had intended to do to begin with. So once again, I'm just saying that we need to decide how we want to look. I'm going to play the community card, okay? This is our community. And we need to start treating it like we live here. That's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's nobody else from the general public, And are there any final comments on the public hearing, commissioners, questions or concerns?
I have a comment.
Go right ahead, Commissioner Faison.
I really appreciate that we got some clarification about applications in a pipeline, but that actually adds more concern than less. And I feel like, you know, we haven't done this before, but I feel like we need to be presented with more information on process so that we don't accidentally do things we didn't intend to do.
I concur.
Absolutely.
And it's not, like, in my opinion, it's not about like I dislike a business or I dislike, you know, it's none of that. It's not personal. I just think that it's an opportunity for multiple divisions and bodies to be on a page together so that we make decisions confidently.
Absolutely. Because in theory, when we recommend approval or denial, it still comes out of here and goes to city council. It's just they have the final say so in it, except for things that we approve at our level, which are site plans. So, thank you. Those processes do need to be clarified. Mara.
Chair, so I just want to ask a clarifying question. What more information is needed or required or desired?
We probably, it would take a while to put a list together, but I know that I've heard things just in terms of like the sequencing of things and when certain laws were passed, when moratoria, when did it start and stop? Like there's probably a lot of background that we would benefit from, that like sometimes city council goes over certain things and they have the benefit of having the attorney with them at that time. There are things that we don't always get, you know, so I think we get a certain level of detail, council gets a certain level of detail, and that's not necessarily on staff. And there are things that happen even before you all were our representatives, you know, so I just feel like there's a good amount of background that we probably all could contribute to, so that we're asking for one set of things instead of like a bunch of requests. That's just my personal perspective.
I guess one thing too, maybe tonight during miscellaneous, I know we're going to talk about the email issue, but we could also maybe speak on a request from the planning commission to the administration or to city council to start that process of clarifying this, because we get set, this is like the third controversial meeting, and I don't want to say it's controversial with us and the public, but just as far as being clear on what we're discussing and how we're going to move, and it ends up being a stalemate. The AFC play still ain't nothing has come from that, so that's just me speaking of that. But anyway, we'll talk about that at the end. Is there anything further, commissioners, before we move forward with closing the public hearing? The floor is open for a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Willis, and was that Commissioner Daniels? Great, and seconded by Commissioner Daniels. All in favor? All opposed? Public hearing is now closed. We're down to item C. The floor is open for a motion to open the public hearing for the 2022 smoking lounge ordinance.
Open the public hearing. Support.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Kane and supported by Commissioner Williams. Okay, I heard the voice, but I didn't know where it came from. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Public hearing is now open. Mara, you have the floor.
Yeah, hello everyone again. Thanks for having us. So you are familiar with the smoking lounge ordinance. Staff has been making updates and we've been in conversation with the planning commission. And we have today with us the latest number of the planning commission or planning department team for the city of Inkster, Gage Belko, who's a great colleague of ours with McKenna and is now joining the city of Inkster's planning department team. So let's welcome Gage. Thanks, Gage, for coming. And Gage, please take it away.
Thank you, Chair. And
Thank you for coming on such a wonderful night.
Yeah.
Hi.
It's weird sitting up here without officially introducing myself, so nice to meet you all. Thank you
Nice
for
to meet
having
you.
me.
Welcome.
You'll be seeing a lot more of me, hopefully, in the future.
Great.
So yeah, my name's Gage. I've been working on the smoking lounge ordinance the past couple of months. Been making revisions as I've been receiving feedback from all of you, kind of in the background, behind the scenes. This latest round of revisions kind of clarified, what was required by the state and what was, able to be regulated by Inkster. And that had a lot to do with statements of nuisance, criminal history, background checks, that sort of thing. There is no state precedent for performing those procedures when approving or not approving a smoking lounge ordinance. So basically what I've done is removed those references to criminal history and background checks to make the process more equitable and accessible for folks. Statement of nuisance, we've revised from looking at a 7-year history to a 3-year history, just to give people a little bit more breathing room. Other things, we've clarified some definitions as far as smoking products or substances. We took out the reference to marijuana and its byproducts. As you can see, this is kind of a sticky situation with marijuana, so we're just going to kind of not implicate this ordinance with this marijuana ordinance. Similarly, we've taken out the definitions for marijuana, recreational or medical. The way we reference it in the smoking lounge ordinance as proposed, it's all encompassing. It doesn't make any sort of distinction. We don't want people smoking marijuana at all in these smoking lounges, so we're not going to implicate the future revision to that ordinance. Other things, liability insurance, that's kind of covered during the process of getting a business registered, so we don't need that in there. Grounds for denial, you've read the letter and the cover letter, but we've pretty much gotten rid of those specified criminal acts just to make that process a little bit more equitable. So thank you. Any questions? I'm happy to take them.
Thank you. Commissioners, the floor is open. I know we went over this a couple of times. Oh, Commissioner Faison.
I just have one question. Under outdoor activities, it talks about, it's written as if it's to limit proximity to food establishments.
What page?
I should have written page down on here.
Or the title, something.
Well, it's under outdoor activities.
Outdoor activities.
Page 14.
Page 14.
Section 125.23.
Yep. All right. Yeah, so sort of, I guess, in a similar vein to a special land use, council would have the ability to approve that smoking happen outdoors, outside of that building that the smoking lounge is housed in, to happen on a patio in an outdoor activity. In considering that use, they would look at the proximity of food establishments, the public right of way, to make sure that any sort of odors or anything would sort of trespass and for a food establishment, because that is regulated by the state.
Okay.
Schools and parks, residential areas, it's just something that they would consider. There aren't any hard and fast rules written in this ordinance. It kind of gives council a little bit of flexibility.
And the only reason I asked the question is because, if someone, I guess I'll think of like hookah. I would assume that if you want to have a social environment on a patio, I was trying to understand like why that should be so far from a restaurant, like what, but I appreciate the explanation as to why that might be.
Yeah, just don't want to implicate that smoke-free sort of restaurant law that we've got going.
I think to clarify a little further, I don't think the language is in there to preclude smoking lounges being adjacent to eating establishments. Certainly the Hookah Lounge is a great example of it because it's a restaurant and a smoking lounge all at the same time. And they're in the same building. What I think the language does is it gives council and planning commission flexibility to say, you know, we don't think in this particular case, being in this proximity to this establishment or that establishment, it's appropriate. It's not a blanket exclusion for any of those purposes, but it outlines it as an option and a point of clarification and tool for you guys to use when permitting, because it is a special land use. So it's one of those things that you would take into consideration when you're looking at the application.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question on this matter.
You can tell he's been doing this longer than me.
Commissioners, do you have any further questions? All righty. This is a public hearing, and this is, at this time, the general public is allowed to speak to the 2022 smoking lounge ordinance. And of course, just to give some background, we asked about this process when the one came into the city and we had no ordinance on the books. And so we knew at that particular time we needed to do something because many more may come and we had nothing to regulate what we were going to do going forward. So anybody from the general public? Read the third time.
I just have one question, because when this was being formulated, one of my concerns was the fact that it used, you did say they took out all references to marijuana, correct?
Yeah, nothing that.
Okay, so
Yep.
because there were herbal cigarettes,
Right.
and you can construe that to mean any number of things. So there's nothing that someone can, I mean, because if you leave a window open, people will climb through.
Oh, yeah, that window's
so-
closed and locked. Later.
All right. That's my major concern with this, except,
Mhm.
you know, maybe I'm weird, but I just, if I had to smoke, would do it at home. I
Yeah.
wouldn't need a place to go.
Yeah, later
So
on.
anyway, that was my question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're good. Later on in the ordinance, in the draft ordinance, it says marijuana products prohibited.
So we're good. Anybody else? Any final questions, comments, or concerns, commissioners? Hearing none, the floor is open for a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second motion.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Daniels and supported by Commissioner Willis. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. The public hearing is now closed. This takes us down to old business, because this was old business when we first, because we've been on this for some time. Item A, 2022 Smoking Lounge Ordinance, review and consider approval of the 2022 Smoking Lounge Ordinance. I don't think we need any further discussion from the planning department, so the floor is open for a motion. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a quick point of order. So my understanding is that you would be recommending adoption of this ordinance to city council.
Yep.
I think the way you read the motion was that you would be approving the ordinance, and that's not quite right.
Gotcha. So that needs to change on here, because that's what it says. I just read it off of here.
Correct.
Okay.
So the appropriate action would be for planning commission to recommend approval of the ordinance to city council for adoption.
Thank you for catching that.
Yep.
So commissioners, whoever makes that motion, make sure your verbiage is correct.
Motion to recommend approval of the 2022 smoking lounge ordinance for adoption by city council.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Kane, supported by Commissioner Daniels. If there is any further discussion, please state at this time. If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Down to item B, Planning Commission meeting schedule adjustment. Just give us a refresher really quick on that, Mark.
Yeah, sure. So last time we met was a couple weeks ago, or no, a couple months ago, April 11th, 1 month ago. couple weeks ago. Okay, and we discussed the topic of having one meeting a month for planning commission. It seems like it was overall favorable. And so staff looked at the proposed meeting schedule, and on appendix A of the agenda, we have the proposed meeting schedule with just meeting once a month. And we did discuss having special meetings as needed. So planning staff chose the fourth Monday of the month because in the city of Inkster's calendar, it actually lists that planning commission meets on the fourth Monday of the month. And that's it.
All righty. Any questions, commissioners? Hearing none, the floor is open for a motion to approve or adopt. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Approve.
Adopting a new schedule. All right, the floor is open for a motion to adopt the new planning commission meeting schedule to be one planning commission meeting per month on the fourth Monday of the month.
Recommend adoption. Recommend adoption.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, so probably moved by Commissioner Kane, supported by Commissioner Williams. No further discussion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Now we're down to new business.
I'm sorry, could you clarify, you're now having one meeting a month, the fourth Monday of every month?
That's correct, except for the one that falls on a Tuesday because of the holiday. Yes. Just yes.
So it's as Chair, if I may, it's, we're meeting as presented in this calendar, which is posted on the city.
Like my birthday.
Your birthday's in the calendar?
And the special meetings will be held if we needed to on the.
On that second Monday. Yeah, if, just for clarity,
If needed.
as Commissioner Daniels iterated, if we need a special meeting, we would still have that Monday open and able to call that special meeting on that day. Or not call it on that day, but call it for that day.
So I'm amending the motion.
Okay.
Okay,
What we amended it to?
so consider approval and adoption of the planning commission meeting schedule to be one planning commission meeting a month on the fourth Monday of the month, see appendix A. Special meetings have the ability to be held on the second Monday of the month as deemed necessary by the chair.
Not necessarily by the chair.
By any of the commissioners, if you.
By any commissioners.
Yeah. If a meeting
But we
is,
said that in the beginning, though, when we all talked about.
yeah.
That we would-
Just by planning. Size how much is the queue.
So this is nothing new that was, I mean, we said that when we talked about having one.
Member of the team.
It would have, so the meeting, special meetings have to be called by commissioners, not planning staff, but planning staff can recommend or reach out to commissioners asking for the special meeting.
All right, so the motion is amended. Let's rewind. Do you support the amendment of the motion?
Yes.
I'm sorry, do you move the amendment of the motion?
Move, so move.
Do you still support?
I still support.
All right, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? The amendment passes. Thank you, Mara, for that. Now we're down to new business. Case numbers 21-20, special land use, and 21-19, site plan review. Adult use marijuana retailer, medical marijuana provisioning center, and drive-through restaurant. Review and consider approval of a special land use request and site plan for a retail marijuana establishment, medical marijuana provisioning center, and drive-through restaurant in the B3 General Business District at 29225-29245 Michigan Avenue. And this is the one where we normally do two separate motions because there's a special land use and it's the site plan review. So commissioners, the floor is open for a motion. What is your pleasure?
I'd like to move that we table this so that way we're not saying yes or no.
Tabling it in its entirety or tabling one or the other? Because it's two different motions here. I see Mr. Gormflo approaching, so I think he's gonna give us clarity.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
no problem.
So one of the things that I would recommend for the record is that planning staff present their two reports, one for the site plan and one for the special land use, so that the findings of fact are presented into the record for the special land use consideration especially, and then discussion about the site plan after the fact. So there may be some additional things, if there's items that are conditions that staff is recommending as part of the site plan review, you would know what those are prior to making your motion. Just as a point of order.
Okay. So I have to make two motions.
In here?
No, regarding to what he's saying. So we're talking about the new case A, right? 21-20, right now.
Yep.
Specifically. So I like to make the motion that we table this until our next meeting. For further discussion and further review to ensure that we have exactly everything we need before moving forward with the approval.
Okay, so just for clarity purposes, when I was saying you normally do two motions down here, were you doing everything or was this just the special land use or the site plan review?
Through the chair, I think we gotta let Mara talk about, right?
Mara, go ahead.
Yeah, talk about
Or,
special
Yeah,
land.
yeah, because we're confused.
Doesn't she have to present something?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Hold on.
let's
Oh,
kill the
yeah, I'm
motion.
sorry.
And let her
We
present.
Present the site
Wait,
plan
wait, wait.
review. I'm sorry. We only had a public hearing about the special land use. My apologies.
That's why I was wondering, like, what am
Yeah,
I?
we need her to present.
Go, Mara, go ahead.
Thank
All
you.
day, y'all.
We got this. Okay. So, okay, let's look at the special or the site plan review report issued by McKenna staff. This is a request to open up an adult use marijuana retail, which is recreational marijuana, medical provisioning center, which is medical marijuana, and a drive-through restaurant at the location listed on the staff report, 29225 Michigan Avenue. So staff reviewed this and looked at criteria for the zoning ordinance under what is needed for a site plan and a special land use. The recommendations to move this forward are listed on page 6 of the site plan review. As we can see in the bulleted items, these recommendations are needed for the applicant to abide by all zoning ordinance requirements. So should planning commission make any recommendations today of approval, conditional approval, or denial, we staff recommend that planning commission ask the applicant to include the bulleted items within their final site plan review. So we can look at these items. Number 1 is addressing what color the exterior walls will be. Second is asking what kind of irrigation system will be installed to address the intensive landscaping that they're putting on their site. So how will they maintain the landscaping? We're happy that they're putting in trees and landscaping. That's per the zoning ordinance requirements, but how will they maintain it? The next is addressing photometric plan needs. So some foot candles, which is the unit that we measure light in, are a little higher than ordinance standards. So just want to make sure that we are not contributing to any more light pollution within the city or affecting any adjacent properties in any negative way. And the next bullet is we need to know a little bit more about the number of employees so we can calculate the parking requirements. But this doesn't seem like it's not a massive setback to not bring the items to planning commission today. These are all easy adjustments, just more information needed from the applicant's perspective. So we see that the planning commission can still make a decision based on the information provided. The next is asking the planning commission to consider reducing the loading zone space. They don't need as big of a loading zone space as is stated in the zoning ordinance. So it is part of the planning commission's police powers to reduce the request or the loading zone space. Another item that I will add in from, because I synthesized this from the special land use review, is to install no smoking signs throughout the property. And these are all the conditions, well, recommendations for conditions upon consideration for the site plan as presented.
Thank you. Now, commissioners. Any questions, comments, or concerns about site plan review information that Mara has just presented us with?
But, yes, Mr. Chair, the last one you said, you're just adding, that's not only the install no smoking signs. Is that here?
We would want to vocalize that.
Okay, but that's not a bullet point.
It is written in the special land use review as a recommendation.
Okay.
So all in the special land use review, so we just looked at the site plan and special land use review. Staff reviewed this report and all underscored or underlined items are to direct attention, key findings for the planning commission. So after reading this report, the only thing that I would add on this staff recommendation to any conditions is to make sure that the applicant adds a note to the site plan indicating no smoking signs will be posted. Another note could be added that indicates all marijuana will be enclosed and locked in the facility.
So I was trying to follow her. I'm following her reading this recommendation, correct? So in her reading, and the only reason why I brought that up, because I don't see the last two things that she said that the planning commission would recommend, not in the bullet point. So I'm just stating that, do we need to write that in here so that we know that that's one of the recommendations? Because I don't see that in black and white here about the install no smoking signs posted and what you just said about the marijuana thing, getting locked and whatever. That's not in the bullet points where she was reading from. I'm trying to follow her.
Nope, you're exactly correct.
Okay.
So the bullet points that she was currently reading from are for the site plan review. Okay, the two other points that she raised are conditions of the special land use review. So since you're going to be making hopefully two motions, one for the site plan and one for the special land use, if you were to approve them or approve them with conditions, you could recommend approval of the site plan with the conditions noted in the site plan review dated whichever, and you could recommend approval of the special land use with the conditions that are listed in the special land use review. So you'll get them covered both ways, but two of them are under special land use and the other ones are under site plan, and they're two separate actions that need to take place.
Oh, okay.
Or if you're leaning toward tabling, you need to table each of those things separately or ask for them to be tabled. But I would also recommend in the pursuit of expediting and timely approval processes that you would table it to a date specific.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question of process?
If Commissioner
Oh, I'm
Dan
sorry.
wants
You have the floor, sorry.
No, go ahead.
In terms of process, I'm trying to understand the options. And so it sounds like there is an option to, so you could in theory approve the site plan and table the special land use?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to clarify that that's one of the options. Okay.
But
We've done it before, and I forget for what reason you had to do that. So I think something was off.
So one last point of clarification. So the site plan for their proposed use, even if you approve that, ultimately it's subject to or conditioned to receipt of a special land use
Mhm.
approval. So that would need to be clarified if you're going to separate the two of them. Do you
Oh,
understand?
you have to say that even, it's not just,
Implied?
Yeah.
It's no, because if you're implying, or if you state that you're approving the site plan includes a use. And so if you're not approving the use, you have to say that you're not approving the use or special use in this case. But you're approving the site plan as it stands, subject to approval of the special land use in the future.
and I thought I heard a recommendation to specify a date to bring it back.
Yes, if you're going to table either of these two things, then you should table it to a date specific, like the next meeting, for consideration, just so that there's good faith effort being put forth on the part of the planning commission to move the process forward, so that there's no suggestion perhaps of delays or roadblocks or things like that.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Through the chair, I just want to say, I know, Rebecca, that you're thinking about tabling, but I guess for me, I just need to understand why we're gonna do that. Because if the process is not right, it's just not right. We can't change that necessarily by tabling it right now. Something that the planning commission has to work out. They gotta change the language and make it right. Us tabling right now, in my opinion, is not the right thing to do, because it doesn't, again, we can't, if we don't have it in place, and the code's not right, we can't stop it. I think we need to just go ahead and make a decision based on what we have in front of us. So just, obviously, you can make whatever motion you want. I'm just saying that that's my opinion of. Okay.
Anybody else?
I appreciate the perspective. That much more complex, but I appreciate it.
yes, it does. It makes it really. For me, I'm just still feeling a bit unsettled, considering that we just got this. I know we've asked a lot of questions. Some things were clarified. And it's not like we're saying no. And it's not like we're saying yes. But I just think we do still need some more review of what we're saying yes or no to. That's the reasoning for my table. And I would say 30 days at the next meeting. I think that's fair. At least we're putting forth the effort to say, we're not saying no.
So with a motion to table, which you haven't made yet,
Yeah.
it would be helpful if there was a specific reason or specific information that was being requested from either planning staff or from the applicant or the administration or whomever you think that information needs to come from, so that there's an actionable item to be followed up with for the tabling. Just so that if there's something that the applicant needs to provide, that they can do that to provide you information, or if there's more information that you need from staff or the administration or whomever, but just tabling it to table it because I'd like more time. In my opinion, it should be a little more specific.
I can clarify my perspective. I think personally, I would prefer something not necessarily, I mean, staff play a role, but I think from the administration, some clarification on where we are with process, just because we've heard here today that, like, there's this gentleman here who there are some questions about management of things, and I think, like, from a legal perspective, we need to know.
Well, as Commissioner Kane pointed out, the process is the process right now. And planning staff has done their best to fully comprehend and understand exactly what that process is. And as convoluted and perhaps unsavory as the process may be, that's what we have to live with at this point. And so certainly a request for additional information or additional clarification from the administration could be something that could be done outside of the current process, with you all understanding that staff is working diligently to revise the ordinances, because there's multiple ordinances that need to be revised as a result of this, that's all being worked on as quickly as we can so that we can clarify and eliminate and provide explanation for all of the things that are currently wrong with it.
Would it be appropriate to ask where, like how colleagues, like what they might need one way or another before a motion is put out?
Absolutely appropriate.
I mean, I think a few of us have described, where we think we are. I wonder if we like go down this side of the table, is it appropriate to ask you?
Oh, sure. In regards to, and let me make sure I'm on the right one. Yeah, in regards to me, like we've talked about with other entities that have come in. For instance, I'm gonna use the Dollar General as a prime example. And they wanted to build new down in Lehigh and Inkster Road. And the residents in that area did not want it there. They came out as a community and voiced that. They said we wanted somewhere else. They were fine with it. They voiced all their concerns and stuff. Dollar General went through the whole process and then didn't even go there. They went into somewhere where it was permitted use on Michigan Avenue and Inkster Road. But the community, we heard the community and their concerns, and then it did, of course, come to council, and that was that. But in that, when the parent company was looked up and they owned all these different other types of businesses, the community was saying, and different persons on council were saying, we have too many dollar stores in Inkster. Why do we need another one? Give us something of better stature. And they didn't say yes or no, maybe so, nothing. And it was like, nope, we want to put a dollar store there. Anyway, they moved it down there, and then that's it. We haven't heard from them anymore. So with this particular establishment, I'm all for a restaurant for sure. But I've told you over the years, I've been inundated and yelled at and screamed at and lied on about what we were doing in Inkster when it comes to these facilities. And multiple people have been and probably still will be. So that's why it's one of those tough, confusing decisions to make, because regardless of what the process is, if the people don't want it, we're supposed to be the voice of the people. And that's kind of where that debacle comes from in the decision making for myself, as well as when we're looking at trying to acquire other information on what other developments might be in the pipeline right there that we don't realize that have gotten, like they stated earlier, lost or something. And then we move forward with one, and then someone comes up and says, well, what happened to me? I had my stuff turned in X, Y, and Z. So I wish, one, that the attorney was here, because they know this stuff gets controversial. And heck, I wish the clerk was there too, for that matter. So that's a reason why, because we need to ask them those questions. Because when the business owners come out, when the community comes out and speaks their piece, we need to make sure we're fair to everybody.
So I would agree 100% with what you're talking about, with one exception of clarification. So you have a code of ordinances, which are effectively the law. And as long as an applicant meets the criteria and satisfies the requirements that are stipulated in the ordinance, then the planning commission is obligated to recommend approval or approval with conditions.
Understood.
The
And
law here is the zoning ordinance, not the business licensing ordinance.
Correct.
oh, we know, and
So my point there is that even if the community came out and screamed bloody murder about this project, if the applicant met all of the criteria, your obligation as planning commissioners is to move that project forward. And that's really what you guys are doing at this point, is you're just providing a recommendation to council, which allows the process to continue to move forward and allows the applicant then to continue to work toward achieving that license. And every other applicant has that same opportunity as well, depending on how quickly they get drawings in, how fast we can process them, how quickly we can bring it to planning commission. And we're doing that as diligently as we can to move the process forward.
understandable. Just after the meeting, because you brought it up, with the ordinances and the code of law is one issue that did come up in the past. I just want to brief you on.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
It's a fun, sticky issue too.
If I may, I'm sure there's a lot of sticky issues. It seems like you have one.
Well, hold on one
Yeah.
second. We normally don't let anybody go.
Right.
You are with the applicant,
And
so
I
that
just clarify.
I'm gonna allow that.
So I hear what you guys are saying, you have some issues with respect to whether, for example, he is applied first or second, or what the situation was. I think that's only an issue in one of the documents you're considering, one of the approvals you're considering right now, not both of them. So for the first site, it seems to me there are no setback issues, there are no ordinance issues. It seems that the first one clearly meets the setbacks, and the requirements of special land use and site plan approval. And maybe some questions on the second one. I think the motion you would make is the clarification on whether there are any issues created by the proposal of approval of that second application to city council, when in fact it's somebody else who has applied before that. But I think for the first special land use site plan approval, my other client over here, I think that there's really nothing to adjourn. Legally speaking, there's no rationale for adjournment on the basis of the ordinance at all.
Thank you. Commissioners, anything further? Mr. Cornflow.
Sorry, I keep interrupting, but one more thing is that currently the way the process is written is I know there's a general belief that if I filed my application first, should have priority. That's not how this process works currently in the city. If you file your application, it doesn't make any difference in what order the applications were received. Right now, all it matters is that they've received a sign off from the clerk's office to allow them to the next step, which is to apply for site plan approval and a special land use approval. So anybody could be coming in at any point in time in the process, whether they applied first or 31st or second or whichever. Our process says none of that makes any difference until you get your final certificate of occupancy. In order for them to get that, they have to go through this whole process, including site plan review and special land use review.
Okay. Thank you.
I was gonna ask if our colleagues wanted to share, if there's any other comments that they wanted to raise before. Okay.
Nope. Okay. All right, well, if there's no further discussion, the floor is open for some type of motion.
To the chair, Rebecca, I don't want to step on your toes on it because I know we have a bit of a disagreement. So if you want to do your motion, you can.
I'm just gonna go with how I feel, and my understanding. I've been to almost every meeting we've had. And I understand the community, I understand what has gone forth. Again, with the emails, I'm just getting this, I'm just not feeling really confident in my vote and saying, let's move forward with this right now. And I'm not feeling confident in saying no, because I'm all for bringing businesses to the city of Inkster, whether it be whether it be medical, but preferably restaurants. I like to make the motion that we table both the site plan review and the special land use for no less than 30 days, which will be at our next planning commission meeting.
Is there support for discussion?
Support for discussion.
All right. So one, I think we need to make those two separate motions, one for the special land use and one for the site plan.
They say that.
And then for two, I know you said no less than 30 days. You said for the next meeting, but we did talk about if we need to call a special meeting on that particular Monday.
Correct.
So is 2 weeks enough time?
2 weeks will be fine.
Okay.
We'll do that.
All right.
That would be excellent.
That way it doesn't.
The applicant wouldn't even have to wait 30 days. That would at least give us 2 weeks and we can all come back with a definite answer.
Okay,
That would be- Yes.
thank you.
Second that.
All right.
Through the chair, I just want to go back to what Mr. Garfield said. What is the specific reason? That
I
was
just told
made?
you, I mean, I said it right, that's why I said what I said right before I made the motion.
Just that you're not comfortable, nothing specific that somebody has to do.
Well, we talked about it. We talked about various things. We talked about various things that, I mean, and I think that's why this meeting has gone on as long as it has. Because of.
One of the things too, Commissioner Kane, and not to cut you off, and just to shed a little bit of clarity, she spoke on today, and we're gonna speak on it. There has been some technical issues where the group email comes out, and I know at least 2 commissioners never get them.
Never.
And they got 2 different domain names. I don't know why. We've started investigating. So they just got the packet of stuff this afternoon because Commissioner Williams called me about 1 or 2 o'clock to say, hey, are we having a meeting tonight? I haven't received anything. I said, the information came out last Monday. So that's basically just like some of our council colleagues say, don't sit nothing in front of us the night of at a council meeting and want us to vote on it.
And through the chair, I think that's fine. I think that needs to be put on the record that that's the reason. And that's what Mr. Garfield was telling us is that if we're gonna delay, we need to have a reason to do so, not just because we don't feel comfortable. So that's what I'm saying. And I think that's a legitimate reason that you two just got the document. And so you need more time to look at it.
And I apologize for not being clear, but that was one of the very first things that I said
Yes,
with regard to the emails that I had not received this until today.
And, Mr. Chairman, and we also need to request for this, in 2 weeks, the meeting that the attorney be there.
Yes.
And the city clerk.
And the city clerk. And I know we in discussion about this, not necessarily about the clerk. If I'm not mistaken, and blame my mind and not my heart, when we had first got the new city clerk, didn't she mention she was gonna be involved in the planning commission process for some time? Because she had attended and took role in something at one point in time, right?
For the planning commission, I think she said, I'm not sure.
Because her and Malika came on Zoom, right? Okay, that's a question to ask too.
Oh, they used to sit in the meetings.
Yeah, you know what? Never mind. I know
They,
what probably
serve
happened is, I
secretary.
mean, that's a long day. If you on Zoom, that's one thing. But once you're here in person at City Hall all day, then you gotta stay for a 6:30 meeting. Don't know what time that's gonna end every Monday.
Yes.
So, okay, but we're gonna bring that back up though to get clarity. Anyway, so yes, a communication request being sent out from me or the planning department, I guess, about asking the clerk and the attorney to be here. All right, is there any further discussion? I'm sorry, because we went into discussion and the motion is on the floor. Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Was everything clear on that, Mara?
Who moved it and who seconded it?
Commissioner Daniels moved it, Commissioner Willis seconded it for discussion.
Okay.
And then that carried on and it passed unanimously.
And that was for.
Item A.
Yes.
And that was for the special land use. So,
I have both special land use and site plan review. Do you want me to read what I have?
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yes.
Okay. So moved by Daniel, second by Willis, to table a special land use review and site plan review until the June 13th, 2022 special planning commission meeting.
So
This is due to Commissioner Daniels not receiving the material until today. For the record, staff submitted planning packet 1 week in advance. Request that the city attorney and city clerk attend the meeting.
He's a city attorney and city clerk.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there's multiple commissioners that didn't, because I didn't receive the email either.
Commissioner Williams, okay.
All righty. Thank you. We're down to item B. Case numbers 21-19, S special land use and Case numbers 21-19 special land use and 21-19 site plan review. Adult use marijuana retailer. Review and consider approval of a special land use request and site plan for a retail marijuana establishment in the B3 General Business District at 30,007 Michigan Avenue. Are you care to speak to that one?
Yeah, so again, staff reviewed the site plan in accordance to zoning ordinance requirements for site plan requirements and also special land use requirements. As we have in this packet titled SP site plan review number 4 on page 8, we have all of the conditions or recommendations for conditional approval of the site plan. We can go over them. Number 1, the window square footage needs to be brought into compliance. Currently, there's only 16% of transparency in facade, whereas the zoning requirement is 30%, or planning commission can grant a waiver. If you look at the site plan facade on the elevations drawing, I don't know what page number it is, but it's within the packet. You can grant a waiver if you want less transparency in the building, or if you want them, the applicant, to have 30% of their facade as transparent. Number 2, all landscaping along Michigan Avenue meets the setbacks. New plantings need to just show some more dimensions. So we just need a little bit more information. Again, this is just another easy adjustment for the applicant. 3, again, as the other project, they're asking for a waiver. This is something that staff will look into also, for the record, as we write down a list of how to amend the zoning ordinance. But they're asking for a waiver to have less of a loading area because they don't need as much space as required in the zoning ordinance. Number 4, the applicant needs to add an additional deciduous tree in the interior landscaping, which is also another quick fix. 5, planning commission can consider waiving the requirement not to install terminal landscaping island. So in the zoning ordinance, planning commission has the opportunity to waive this requirement. If you see fit, you can do so. 6, the accessory building on the property needs a little bit more clarity on what its use is for. So we just need to know a little bit more, and we touch base on that within the review itself. Another quick fix. 7, as we had a conversation with the vice chair today, the applicant needs to remove all descriptions related to micro business within the site plan so that we have clarity on what they're asking for. Another clarification items. And then Commissioner Daniels, regarding the special land use report, just separate, there are 2 items that we can merge from this special land use conditions and recommendations to the site plan. And those 2 items are to install the no smoking signs on the property, as we saw before, and then also submit documentation that site is open to inspection by an applicable city agency. 2 quick fixes to add in the note section. That's what I have today, Chair.
Thank you, Mara. Commissioners, questions, comments, concerns? Based off of, I guess you could say, the information that she just provided us for the site plan review. Because we did kind of go into the special land use a lot more so during the public hearing. I'll give you a minute to mull it over. I see some scanning and whatnot. Mara, I just have a question real quick while we're waiting. I know you talked about the reduction size of a loading space.
Yes.
And I know we've done that before waivers just because the particular entities were using box trucks and not semis or anything over, I guess you could say 35 feet, delivery vans, so on and so forth. So not pertaining necessarily to this location, but just in general, you said planning staff was looking into that. What exactly are you looking at, I guess, doing to, I guess, aid in that process?
Well, that's a great question. So there's a list, an ongoing list of things when city staff reviews the zoning ordinance for the city of Inkster. We have an ongoing list of what are the challenges within this ordinance that we would need to adjust to be more accessible or not excessive.
Not the whole thing overall, just that one particular item about the loading dock space. Like, what are you looking to do with that?
So there's two projects that we saw today asking for a waiver for this space requirement. So the idea is, instead of them asking for a waiver, to amend the zoning ordinance eventually, not today, but to amend the zoning ordinance to allow for a 10 by 35 foot loading zone for businesses with, we can add whatever conditions we want. Right now, the zoning ordinance requires a 10 by 70 foot loading zone, which is excessive for smaller businesses that don't have a lot of scheduled deliveries.
Gotcha. He gonna have a hard time backing in off Middlebelt anyway, or Michigan Avenue at that location. Okay, that's all I wondered. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. All right, commissioners. Questions, comments, concerns about item B under new business? Special land use and site plan review. You guys pretty much already know. I think maybe we've already inundated ourselves with comments, or over exhausted, if you will. So if there's no further discussion, the floor is open for a motion.
I mean, through the chair, I would assume that you're gonna take this on Rebecca, because I would assume the reason will be the same.
Yeah,
right?
it's gonna be
That's
the
what I would
exact
assume,
same.
it's gonna be the same reason.
Right, so-
That only makes, yeah, that makes sense, so.
I move that we table this item B, case 21-19 for further review, considering we did not, me specifically, Commissioner Williams did not receive the items in adequate time to be able to review them appropriately until our June 13th.
Is there support?
Support.
We're probably moved by Commissioner Daniels and supported by Commissioner Williams. Just for clarity purposes, is it safe to mimic the verbiage from the past tabling?
Yes, sir.
All right. You still support that? All right, Mara, does that make it easier for you?
Yep, we're good.
Great. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Table to June 13th. All righty, and clerk and the attorneys will be here as well.
That needs to be in there.
For you to be.
Chair, we will request their attendance.
2 weeks.
Hold on 1 second,
is not
sir.
a long time.
Hold on 1 second, sir. Mara,
Chair, I just want to point out, we will request their attendance.
oh, well, the attorney works for city council,
Okay,
so,
I will request, I can't
And the clerk
commit, I
does
will
too.
request.
and the clerk does too, so if we need to get involved with that,
Okay,
it'll be their job to be here.
okay.
Sir? Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty. So we are down to miscellaneous. I know the one thing in miscellaneous I wanted to talk about were the email issues.
Yes.
That's one. You had something? Okay, you want me to go first? You want to go
You
first?
can go first.
All right. All right, you all have a good night.
Bye.
So I emailed, so today I received a phone call from Commissioner Williams inquiring about there was a meeting tonight. And fortunately, I was able to answer the telephone because I was on my prep. And she alerted me that her and Commissioner Daniels, after I said yes, told her what day the packet and everything came out, and that both your emails were on there, and I had no idea why you weren't receiving them. And then she had called you on three-way, got the information to you, but just a blanket thing when my technological portion of my brain started working, I realized they have two different domain names. Commissioner Daniels AOL, Commissioner.
AOL, she's AT&T.
Well, there we go. So we said, okay, at first I thought maybe it was being sent to their spam folders, but they've checked those too. They're just not getting them. So I didn't know if it was something on McKenna's end where it just wasn't going through, because I have one of my Gmail accounts that says Steven.chisholm@gmail.com, but I get emails for a guy who lives in the Northern Territory of Canada, whose name is Stephen Chisholm as well. And there's not been a fix for years.
Wow.
And when I respond to the people, I guess they think I'm spam because or he's playing around, because they never respond to me. They always carry the conversation over him, and I can see everything. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh.
So I just stopped using that account. But I know the period is what makes the difference, but the computers aren't differentiated between the two. In your case, I figured maybe it's something with McKenna servers. I'm not sure.
But what I find so interesting about that is that Myra has emailed me with regard to our subcommittee. And I've gotten them. So I don't know if it's because it was more emails. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've never, I got those, and even when I emailed you to ask you about the other meeting before, no one ever responded to me. So I don't even know if you all got it. That one I asked about, are we having a meeting on the day that we didn't have a meeting?
Right.
No one ever responded back to me.
Oh, wow.
So I don't even know if you all even got that or not.
But you know what? I did respond to you because somebody called me. I think it might have been Commissioner Williams. I said I responded to her.
It was
But I didn't get that. So
Yeah,
I'm
it was
talking
me.
about the one for last 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
date
yeah.
was that? That would have been what date? That would have been
Not the May 9th, but prior to that, it was an April meeting there.
right. So I asked, were we having a meeting? Because I hadn't received anything, because I know we had talked about several things. Number one, we said, hey, we're gonna
And did you
start doing
receive my
Google
email?
Calendar.
I mean,
We're gonna
my
start
phone
doing the
call?
Google Calendar.
I left you a message on Friday to let you know that we were not receiving any correspondence.
I did not get.
Right, and then I got a call from the front desk. I said, oh, this is pretty cool, to remind us. You know, I'm thinking we moving okay, because we were saying, hey, this will be good for us, to at least we know. Instead of just saying, hey, if you don't, we having a meeting regardless.
Oh, yeah, you got the telephone
Remember
call
when
from
we talked
McKenna.
about that?
That's
So we
right.
said, hey, let's be a little bit more, confident in knowing that we're gonna have.
Did you get the email?
Yeah, I can.
You're gonna ask a question, Matt?
Yeah, two things. Is it difficult for you to mail them out? Because, all the prior years, we used to get a package, so it guarantees everyone gets their package. And then that way we could be prepared.
Absolutely.
Secondly, if everybody agreed, maybe we could come in at 6, because I would like to talk to David and the clerk on our own before, the participants come in.
So
So
yes
I was
and
thinking
no.
like maybe we could come in at 6, have them come in at 6, and then we talk to them, get some time to talk to them personally.
Yes and no.
Okay.
You could talk to them personally, but we can't have a quorum in the planning commission meeting with them separately.
Say that again, we can't what?
We can't have a quorum of this body meeting just with the attorney and the clerk to discuss the city business separately before we do that.
Before 6:30.
Right. So, I mean, it's no closed session items.
Well, we could do it, it just would mean nothing.
Well, it would be illegal.
Oh, that's what I want to know.
Yeah,
So it would be illegal.
yeah, but if 2 or 3 people,
Just want to make sure.
Oh, you said but 2 or 3 people. Go ahead.
it just would amount of time to get clarity and stuff like that, that's one thing. But if we all were together, technically, we could take up business without the public being here And it's just not a good thing to do. That's
So
all.
maybe we need to decide on who wants to come in a little early and have that discussion, so it won't be illegal.
Well, we got 2 weeks. And I was gonna say, you could always draft the email or write up your bullet points and get them over to the planner or to me, whoever, and we can get them over to him and ask him to be able to respond to all of that stuff, either to you directly as a commissioner, or if he's gonna be, when he or she is here in person, in front of the entire body and the public. It's just the way we go about doing it, so it doesn't look like we're trying to do anything secretively.
Yeah.
Because then we may be accused of that, especially with the applicants, and we see where their minds are and we know where our hearts are or our minds are. Just to keep it on an even playing field and not look around today and say, well, we got served with this because you guys did X, Y, and Z. So, because that happens.
So instead of actually meeting, we could actually send an email with everybody on it, and that would be okay.
Yeah, would that be appropriate?
He's gonna advise not to, because they done told me to stop sending mass emails. I told him I'm not going to though. But because they said it could be
Because it's still
alleged that you handle and conducting city business
just via email. as
via
opposed
email.
to- So it's the same difference.
So individually, we could send it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if he chooses to call you and have that discussion, he does. If he chooses to respond to the email, he does. But you have that open line of communication. But again, just because, say for instance, let's just send it to the planning department and ask them to compile all the concerns to address with the attorney. So that way we could get a communication back, because if you say you got 10 questions and you got 5, and y'all send our attorneys 2 separate emails, they're gonna bill us to review both and to reply back to both. I forgot about that. And yeah, so that's why I said, well, let's draft up a bullet point, send them to me, or I'm a voluntold you, me or the vice chair or the planning department, so we can just look at everything, get it all together, and then ask the clerk and David to address that, get the information back to you. That way it's only one review instead of 3 different reviews and sends and different responses and stuff like that, and potentially more confusion. This way it gives you time to get all your thoughts out.
Yes.
And everything like that.
Okay, now I have a question. How far are we in this process of clearing up this process?
What a way of words.
Because, I mean, I'm gonna be, I'm not a public in here, so can I speak?
Well,
Yes.
we are being watched, but
streamed.
yes, you can
Yeah,
speak freely.
that's fine. But bottom line is, this is ridiculous. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. This is ridiculous. There has, I mean, so we're saying, okay, this is a procedure is not quite where it needs to be, but yet we're expected to move on something. And we know the procedure right now isn't quite there.
Well, in all fairness to all of the applicants, they're all facing the same process. So everybody's currently in the same boat altogether. So to answer your very specific question, where we're at in the process is we have at this point compiled all of the relevant sections of the ordinance that will be impacted in one way or another with some sort of revision, whether it's simply changing numbering or whether it's changing text or whether it's adding text or whichever. We have all of that information in one place at one time. We've also received direction from the administration as to what they would like to see. Certainly any information or thoughts that you have, I'm pretty confident I understand where the Planning Commission is coming from with regard to these ordinances. But if you have additional comments or questions or concerns, you can certainly send them to Mara, and Mara will make sure that we get them. But Gage and I are going to be working on revising all of the marijuana ordinances, and that's being done as we speak. So I'm hoping to have something in the next 2 or 3 weeks. for you to review.
Okay.
Through the chair, if I could, just Mr. Garfield again, just to kind of go back to this whole process, like when we come back in 2 weeks. I think what you said was important and probably a few, a reminder again is that our mandate here at the planning commission is not one to decide whether or not we really are liking that particular business or not, right?
Correct.
Our requirement, our mandate is that if their special land use meets the requirements and they have everything in order, we need to vote on it and we need to approve it. If the site plan meets the requirements, our mandate as the planning commission is to approve it, right?
Well,
It's that-
recommend approval.
I'm sorry, recommend approval, right? Because I think when it gets to Ms. Watley and the city council and Steve,
Yep.
that's where this other stuff can come in, right?
That's correct.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That's where not that we don't hear them here, we do.
Yeah,
But that's more where the public.
Yeah, I would say the planning commission's responsibilities are fairly pragmatic. They're outlined in the ordinance. You have a code that you follow. Your responsibilities are pretty well set. When it goes before city council, that's where the council members have more latitude to take into the political aspects of how this all comes together and what's happening and what are the liabilities that are perhaps laying out there in wait for the current process. So yes, your job as planning commissioners is pretty straightforward. I realize that it's hard sometimes to not get caught up in the emotions of some of this stuff as it goes on. But those are the requirements of what you guys are supposed to do. So you guys, I've got 2 hands up.
So the question becomes, because I'm just gonna slide right into what you just said.
Sure.
With regard to what our responsibilities are.
Yep.
If you've done what you were supposed to do and you're just telling us, hey, this is what the applicant has come to us, they've done what they're supposed to do. They may need to do whatever the recommendations are, conditions are. Why do you even need us? Why don't it just go from you to the city council? What are we here for?
Well, because
And not only that, then
requires
what do
that
you need a
we-
public hearing for then?
I'm just like, okay.
It's the law.
That's the law.
It's just the law.
The law.
Michigan's on enabling that.
Like, it's our job to make sure they're doing their job though.
right.
Exactly.
So we
And-
are
and-
a check there. I mean, we happen to have great staff, but we also have the ability to push back on the things that they
So,
present
but
to
what are
us.
we pushing back on if they done what they're supposed to do?
Well, we're making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Okay.
So I'm going to put something out there that I don't recommend, but I'm going to just say that we, just like you are responsible in the city of Inkster. We're responsible to uphold and provide professional direction and interpretation of the ordinance at your request and to provide you guys with information to aid in your discussion and decision-making processes. Just because, and this is where I don't agree with what I'm about to say, but just because we as staff recommend approval of something doesn't necessarily mean that the planning commission has to recommend approval of it.
But that goes back to what I'm saying. You just said, because you're not gonna really come to us with it until you know you basically dotted all your i's and crossed all your t's.
That's right. And that's why
So
hopefully you have confidence in the job that we're doing so that we can provide you all of the information. and
we can
support.
literally be here for 30 minutes.
We could.
You could.
We have, and there's been a time too where the planning department has actually recommended denial.
Yeah.
And, we could have still pushed it through, but
Mhm.
after looking at everything, the applicant wanted the process to
And I did not want to deny them because of the fact that I really did not read this. I
No,
mean, you
absolutely.
literally sent this to me, the actual packet, at 4 or something?
Yeah.
I feel like this raises something that, I feel like you all have lifted up things that spark something in me, which is, on one hand, if an applicant meets all the criteria, you know, we have to have a legal reason not to approve it. And we're thinking about, you know, we want to prevent a lawsuit. Like, I mean, that's like one of the biggest reasons why this process exists, is to like protect the city from X, Y, and Z, like so many things. But then you also, you know, having recommendations to listen to what you hear you know, like to listen to the public. And it's very squishy as to like, what is the thing that should push from, you know, listening to, you know, like them meeting the legal requirements versus something that you might hear, you know, from in a public hearing. Like there is no, it's just so squishy as to like what triggers, which one triggers which.
So I would say in that event, there are certainly arguments that are more valid than other arguments that could be brought forth by members of the public as to why something should be approved or denied. At the end of the day, ultimately, we would hope that you would rely on the professional experience of the staff to give you the direction as to which way we think it's best to go. But there again, you don't have to necessarily take our recommendation. And if for some reason we were recommending approval to this body, or that you recommend approval, but something comes out during the public hearing that maybe staff didn't know about or wasn't aware of, or there were other extenuating circumstances, information maybe that council members have that the planning commission doesn't or hasn't been communicated to the planning staff, then
Or what if that school
that
was
could-
closer to the site than we
that
realized? Yeah.
could sway your decision in which direction you take in dispensation of any particular application. Does that make sense?
Yes, this is all helpful. And I imagine when we do our joint meeting, we will talk about all of these things again.
Yes.
Great. Not to cut anybody off, did you have anything pertaining to that? Because I know.
Another matter.
So we are, so what are we doing with the correction with regard to the email? So what is the correction? that's
So-
gonna take?
So Mara sent a different email chain out today
Okay,
as a test, and she asked everybody to confirm if they received it.
okay.
And so if, as it seems, you two were the only two that didn't receive it. I'm
And that
sorry,
was at what time today?
That was at 3:41 PM.
41.
Yep.
That would be-
I know I got yours. I got both of yours.
Okay.
Um,
And in the body of this, it says this is an email test. Please confirm that you have received this email.
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna send another one right now.
I mean, just, you can just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. And I'll be able to tell you.
And I'm going in my spam right now.
So right now I have, okay, I got one from you, hello, at 5:11. Is today the 16th? Oh, no.
Today's the 23rd.
Okay, 23rd. I got one from Steve.
Okay, now I've got one in spam. So this is the first one.
And
that
I went
got
to,
in
okay,
spam.
yeah, for your security, we disable links in this email. That's crazy.
Okay, so let me unblock sender.
IT issue on who's in.
IT just needs to work at because if it's coming.
Oh, you're fine.
If it's coming from one Inkster email address to another Inkster, or is it coming from your?
It's coming from
McKenna?
McKenna.
It's coming from McKenna to an AOL and ATT email.
So maybe what I would do is try sending out information from the planning at Inkster email to the planning commissioners.
See, I don't have nothing.
Well, it looks like it just worked for Commissioner Williams.
Yep, it went into my
Except it went
spam.
into their spam.
See, if
Okay,
I
so
go
then
to-
that means that these, like that Commissioner Williams has to acknowledge.
Yeah, I'm going in there now.
I
but
have it
this-
in my spam.
You got it in yours.
This is my first, but this is the first
Yeah,
time
I have the
that I have it in
text
spam.
And
'Cause the
spam,
other emails I didn't receive, period.
I have
Chair,
the
if I may.
Go ahead.
So I do know that I've had some difficulty corresponding to City of Inkster domains with site plans
Mhm.
due to the file capacity.
Yes.
So perhaps AOL and
That's what I was
AT&T
thinking.
Yes.
not allow,
Yes.
Because I had been
That
getting
has to
file.
be
it.
it.
It just didn't make sense.
Cause it is a big, that one was a big one.
And
so where do we move forward from this? I'm not sure. There's nothing that McKenna can do to create access for these domains.
Right.
Maybe we can create emails and ask.
Email.
So what I did to move forward with other city staff that need to receive these emails, I asked the IT department for the city of Inkster to open up access and allow these email domains to receive a higher file capacity. So if you want, we can move forward with that. It's up to you.
but that's only going to work for City of Inkster emails. That's not going to work for their private individual emails.
Right, because
Well, we would
they're,
have to change domain.
I was gonna say
There's
that,
nothing we could do on our end.
Well, they're actually, I mean, the way to solve this problem without them having to go to their servers and their email providers to have them change their email limits, which they may or may not be able to do depending on their provider, is go back to what Commissioner Williams was suggesting before, which is hard copy paper packets.
That was,
Commissioner Willis, I was gonna speak to that real quick.
Yeah.
That was, in the past, what we did, or I'm sorry, what was asked of the planning commission is who would like hard copies, who would like electronic?
Right.
As we just move forward. There were certain commissioners who still wanted hard copies, and that was fine because I remember Ashley had dropped one off in my front door one day.
Yep.
But I'm fine with the electronic. So whoever wants hard copies, please, make that known. And then there was the mail issue that someone
Yes.
alluded to in Inkster, because I've had where Adriana had dropped off everything at the post office and it made it to some people after the planning commission meeting.
Yeah.
Post office is down the street. So,
Yeah,
and then when,
I've seen that. I had experienced that once
Yeah.
too.
so it was, I guess the option was, it's just sticky. That's on y'all. If you want a hard copy mailed out or something like that, just request it. I'm good with what I'm getting. If you could get the email thing situated as well.
I prefer the
Can you
email. I don't need the
send
hard
me
copy.
another email right
I
now?
just
I
wanna-
just
I
marked
just wanna
it, marked it as not spam.
It might have been that the files were too big. Yeah.
Because I've received many of these.
Yeah,
So-
maybe there's a settings
So-
change.
Go ahead, Mara.
Okay, so what if we can post the packets online?
I can grab.
That's fine.
All right.
I mean, I
It's
thought
good for the public.
as long as they get posted online, and I know sometimes they say there's other okay, let me rewind. We talked about something like that before, and the clerk said that there's certain we were asked not to send out packets to the general public because there was certain stuff in there when someone asks for a packet that need to be redacted.
Oh,
Right.
You're right. I do work with other communities and yeah, the planning commission packets are not posted online.
Well, that's crazy. Now I just got Max test email.
The response.
Yeah, I got it. I got both of his. Okay, so let me.
But he doesn't have anything connected to his. Like I got hers test too, but I didn't get the one she sent at 3
with the
something.
packet. Oh.
Right. I got the one to
Okay,
test two
that's not what you were saying.
today, but I didn't get the one at 3 something.
Yeah, so you just marked her as non-spam.
Yep.
So, and you,
And you sent it again, right? Okay. Go back in the spam too.
Is it okay to move on to another miscellaneous item, or are we still on the emails?
it's okay, move on.
Okay, I just wanted to give everybody a quick update that our ad hoc meeting, our committee has met twice. In our first meeting, we just talked about milestones being, this joint training and just supporting the design of that. I don't think we have a very large role in that, but we talked about just wanting to make sure that it's welcoming, provide support to staff for the invitations, and a couple other odds and ends that we could provide support to the staff so that we have a successful training. We also talked about the other milestones of drafting a recruitment and training process and just generally increasing awareness of the annual report and work plan. And as a result of that conversation, we had a whole bunch of action items, but we did not have enough time to actually assign action items to individuals. So we just have to come back to some of that, but we did agree on trying to get through those milestones, like meet through June and try to address those things that we can through June. And if we need to continue to meet, to do so, but we didn't want this to be a committee that just meets for the sake of meeting, that its purpose is to achieve certain things. So we still have a ways to go to get through our action items. One of the action items from our first meeting was to get trained on Trello. So thanks to Mara, we did get that training and several of us are on the Trello software system. So basically it's MEDC's project management software just for RRC. So we now have the ability to see how we're doing as a community with the RRC process. And I personally need to spend more time with it. I had a hard stop at our hour that day, so I had to excuse myself. So I think I owe the group some follow-up. I think we're probably just gonna get back on our meeting schedule, figure out how we'll divvy up some of these assignments. One major takeaway from our second meeting was that Elizabeth brought a couple of things to our attention. She did suggest that calling it a training doesn't get around the Open Meetings Act. Like we might truly treat it as a training with no intention of passing anything, but it's still has to be posted apparently. So she just wanted to emphasize that. She also recommended some dates that we consider for this joint meeting in early August. So I think it's on my to-do list to do a communication to the city clerk. I'm not sure I don't think we got a chance to identify all the people that need to be in that initial email, just about the idea that we even want to put those dates out for consideration. So we'll figure that out, but a communication is forthcoming on that. So I just wanted to share those items with folks.
Thank you. Anything else? At least two things or just the one?
That was it.
Oh, okay. Anything else, commissioners, for miscellaneous? All righty, we're moving right on down to second hearing of the public.
Oh, man.
Was there anything additional you wish to address tonight?
As far as planning or just anything that's going on, I mean, this being the public is kind of weighty.
I know, right?
A lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it is. This is public participation?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I can do that. I just want to let you all know, because I won't be able to do it at a council meeting. But the city of Inkster has dedicated a street to Lily Lester. Are you all familiar with Lily Lester?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I am.
Miss Lester was the first female sergeant at arms in the State House. First black female sergeant at arms in the State House. On May 5th, she turned 100.
Wow, wonderful.
And she was feted by numerous people. There was Commissioner Anderson was there with a tribute. There was a tribute from the governor, and there was a tribute from President Joe Biden.
Wow.
So we are going to be dedicating the street to her on June the 3rd at 6 p.m. Now, this street is Whitehall Street. That's where she lives and has lived since she's been here in Inkster. And it will be changed to Lily R. Lester.
And you know, she owned the oldest home.
Huh?
She owns the oldest home.
Yeah, that white one there too. So
That's my girl.
you all are all invited. We'll be sending out a press release.
Hey,
and
sharp.
things of that nature.
And she's still sharp, 100 years old,
Yeah,
sharp.
she definitely is. Definitely is. And she has worked tirelessly in this community. She's a political icon. And I guess that would be my thing. I want to let as many people know as I can so they can, celebrate her too. Because there's no small feat being the first Black person anywhere, okay? And then there's the fact that she's attained the age of 100. I want to be just like her when I grow up.
I know that's right.
Repeat that date again, June.
It's June the 3rd. It's Friday, June the 3rd. It'll be at 6 p.m. It'll be right there on the corner. What we
Right
do
there
is
with
we
you.
gather, Jerome sets up
Yeah.
everything and then we
T. Williams at Bowers
dedicate
Basco,
and
T.
Okay.
pull the
Let's
cord.
try that one, see if I don't get it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, nothing else from the general public. The floor is open for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we close this meeting for tonight.
Is there support? Been properly moved by Commissioner Daniels, supported by Commissioner Willis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This meeting is now adjourned. Good night. Look, it's been a long day. I was with I got sixth graders for the whole week. So when you called me, I would think I was on prep.